120 podcasts later.
Oh, so
It has been
counted from our
120
last-
episodes on
the
main
Boyle.
feed
yeah.
since we covered the Danny Boyle 2002 in the UK, 2003 in the US release, 28 days later.
Wow.
120
Was
episodes.
it like a couple years ago then?
It's about two.
2003?
2023.
Yeah.
2003 was the US release.
Oh, no, I was like, I forgot the two.
2023 was our
when-
podcast
yeah.
release. So we covered 28 days later, 20 years later, and now 2 years later, we are covering 28 years later. And we were just talking off mic before we start recording. We all love math here.
We're just all, well, Ben, are you good at math?
Looking at a group of math heads. You're listening to some math heads right now.
Not really.
No.
I always thought it was cool though, the guys who got into like really abstract
Like
mathematics.
Goodwill Hunting shit.
Yeah,
Or
I always
writing
thought
on
that
Windows.
I always
Yeah.
respected that.
This is the
Sure.
most Ben answer.
Like
Yeah.
He just likes
crazy
people writing in
theorems and
hieroglyphics,
shit.
Yes.
essentially.
Totally.
I know some math you're good at, Ben. Fucking the ones and zeros.
Hey,
So you only need to know two numbers.
That's the kind of key thing there.
right.
You can tap out before you get to two.
Two. That's not an audio number.
no.
All right, there you go. He admitted.
He admitted. He
Wow,
admitted.
that's a low energy start.
No, it's a great start. I just had to start out with some math. You said to me, I don't even know if you know about that. Like, talking about a bit that was set up, right? And I came into the studio yesterday to pick up some stuff and noticed that our own producer, Ben, had very carefully and deliberately placed bones on each of our desks.
Oh my God. I didn't even.
Bones.
That's
I
what you were referencing, right, David?
I didn't even notice that you guys had bones too.
We all have bones.
The reason that I
I
thought
have
Griffin
the
might not have
skull.
noticed is that he's got, and I'm not shaming him, a little bit of stuff on his desk. And it's a little more hidden from his
I want to
view.
make my desk feel like home, but I came around the other side when I walked in yesterday and I got a clear shot of the bones, and Ben has he's made specific choices of who has what.
Yeah, what do I have exactly?
I arranged the bones on each station, and I tried to kind of match each bone to each person, but I wanted to make Marie feel special, so she got the head of
Let's
the
be clear.
skull.
Let's just say
I'm,
these
like,
are not
getting
human bones.
emotional.
I think the listener needs to know because they're not seeing this.
Right.
These are not human bones.
These are not human. It also, we played a bit of a guessing game where I tried to guess what animal these bones came from, and I did not.
Took her a while.
Worse.
Took a few swings at
Worse
it.
at that than I am at math.
Do we have an answer?
Yes, we do.
Pig.
These are pig bones?
And here's the
Sure.
other thing. Not all of them, but the skull,
Yeah.
I can guarantee is
Which,
a
if
pig.
you saw this, would you think this is a pig skull?
No, the problem is it looks like a giant rat skull.
I thought
But
it was a fox.
But then once you say pig, it makes sense.
Now, I also would like to add that I consumed that pig.
What?
He had a whole thing.
Yeah. So
Okay, let's just say this is Blank Check with Griffin and David. I'm Griffin. We're not moving away from this. I just think we need to do a little table setting on a fucking new release blockbuster movie episode before we get too deep in our own arcana.
We are recording this episode within the Bone Temple.
It is a podcast about filmographies, directors who have massive success early on in their careers and are given a series of blank checks to make whatever crazy passion projects they want. And sometimes those checks clear and sometimes they bounce. Baby,
Into the Bone Temple.
2 years ago, we did a miniseries on the films of Danny Boyle, a very successful filmmaker, Best Picture, Best Director winner, has had hits, has had critically
He's had hits and
totemic
misses.
films.
He's got an Oscar.
The only blank check director to have made an Olympic opening ceremony?
Well, Spielberg worked on the Chinese one.
We don't.
But he did a pass.
I think didn't he contribute to that in some way?
He did like
But
a
he
Sin
wasn't-
City
he
special
wa-
guest director.
But when I think
Yes.
of that, I think of the Beijing Olympics. I think of
Maybe I'm
Zhang
wrong.
Yimou.
Zhang Yimou was obviously
He's the
big-
auteur. Danny Boyle was the auteur of London 2012.
I'm backing you up here.
Thank you.
Absolutely. Well, I'm like, now I want to know though, who's done every Olympics opening ceremony?
Yeah. My point
Okay,
here
great.
is we covered Danny Boyle, and at the time we covered him, his career had weirdly kind of ground to a halt. In a way
seemed
that
in a bit
felt
of a sort of
emblematic
What's his move?
of a
What's all that
larger
then?
issue in
What's all this?
the industry,
all this?
where it's like, it's weird that he made Yesterday. And I remember saying that to you at the time when it came out, and you were like, he can't get anything else made. He's got to attach himself to a fucking...
He was going to make that Methuselah movie.
There's a lot of things that have been announced.
Right.
He also did a lot of TV.
He did two full seasons of FX shows.
That'll just eat time. Like,
Wait, what shows?
He did a Sex Pistols show.
Yeah, which was...
Oh, right. I
people
forgot. I
didn't love.
watched that. That was okay.
Remember the movie All the Money in the World? The movie devoid of controversy and scandal.
I mean, we talked about this when we did the show. He did, the same thing.
He did a TV show about the exact same thing that aired 6 months after that movie came out and bombed.
Well, yeah. That's crazy.
It was just a weird thing because we've covered directors where it's like, there's clearly a reason why they're in movie jail. Their career went off a ledge, right? They're like fighting a perception they can't kind of overcome. Or directors who have died. And we were like, it is weird that Danny Boyle should still be in like the prime of his career and he just kind of feels a little stuck and on the bench. And we end that series by being like, it feels like they should just do another 28, right? And now here we are. It's happening.
I mean, but it was also once Killian took the stage at the Oscars.
Yeah.
I do feel like everyone was like, all right, like making phone calls, being like, let's do some zombie
And yet
shit.
today we are talking about 28 years later, a movie that Cillian Murphy does not appear in. He has an executive producer credit, but a thing that I don't think is being messaged very loudly to the public, and certainly Ben didn't know when we saw it, is that this is the first of a trilogy of new movies.
Planned trilogy.
The second one is already in the can.
Yes.
And the third one is scripted and is basically waiting on this film having a good opening weekend to officially get the green light.
And since this one wasn't too expensive, I think like it won't take much.
I think it's safe.
Right.
I think it's safe. But Cillian theoretically is introduced in the next one.
I don't think theoretically. They
You're right.
confirmed
He's
that.
in it. He's in it.
But
I don't know
they
how
said
big
that his role in it is smaller and that his role in the third one would be larger.
But there is not a whisper of him in this.
Well, yeah, that's true. They had a scene where he found the Infinity Gauntlet.
Yes.
But they cut it.
And he went, I guess I'll have to do this myself.
Guess I'll have to do it, yeah.
As Cillian pulling a fucking gauntlet out of a washing
He
machine.
did do it himself.
He did do it himself.
Thanos. I'm just saying, like,
do
we give him enough credit?
David, you said himself, he did have his 5 children.
Of course.
Proxima Midnight.
Yes.
Ebony Maw.
Keep going.
Cull Obsidian.
I think so. Or Obsidian Cull. It's one or the other.
I'm tapped out. I know they're all
pretty good.
All of them have one word is a riff on Black, and the other word is some other nonsense.
Great.
Yeah. Anyway, Ben, pig bones that you ate.
Corvus Glaive.
Yeah, I was never going to get that one. Gun to my head, I wasn't going to get that one.
So my former roommate, Nate Patterson, who's also been helping out, he curates playlists that we put together at the end of each miniseries.
Major friend of the show.
He also made the chain display.
Well, this is the thing. He made this piece of visual art for you that was a chain display that then at our art show got modified by him into being a chains and bone display.
I mean, it makes sense.
So it's not like these bones came out of nowhere. These bones have been in the office, but as part of a very controlled installation.
This is art, baby.
It's art.
Wait, so this was part of the chain installation, or
right there. Look, you'll see it.
Or are these brand new? No,
this is from that.
repurposed.
If you look at the chain display, it's low on bones.
I want to defend Spielberg. He pulled out of working on the 2008 opening Olympics ceremony because in protest of China's support of violence in the Darfur region.
Okay.
But Ang Lee apparently also was possibly someone involved. He's an Oscar, but he wasn't the main auteur. I'm going through. Fernando Meirelles did 2016, but he doesn't have a trophy, just a nom.
But we also haven't covered him.
She said
I'm
blank
talking
check
blank
director.
check
That's
director.
that's the qualifier.
Oh, I was just talking about Oscar winners.
Yeah.
I'm just interested.
We're to
now.
both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just interesting.
Producer Ben
Remember the
Hosley.
French one when it was like wet?
Yeah.
It was just like raining all day.
Yeah.
And then
That-
Celine Dion showed up in the end and you were like, all right, she took it home.
By the way, though, most French shit ever.
It was so
It was.
French. It was so
It
French.
was.
If they had like hired Godard to like do the French ceremony, he'd be like, here's my pitch. It's just raining.
right.
And just do whatever you want to do in spite of the rain. He would have made that happen in a controlled way.
Right. He would have somehow just glowered enough.
Yeah,
that
he
it
also would have
starts
said,
raining.
fuck you.
Yeah, well,
and-
that's more likely.
What were you going to say? Marie Barty Party.
Oh,
Barty
yeah, I'm
Salinas.
here. No, not. I was just gonna say I liked the French opening ceremony. Remember where they had like a threesome at one point?
Yeah, that's right. And then all the people got mad.
Yeah, it was cool.
It was too libby.
It was so libby.
They were
Which is
cutting to
good.
the crowds and everyone was struggling to light their cigarettes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They're
Homage.
the little Assassin's Creed man with the torch
I forgot about
doing
that.
parkour.
Oh, that's right.
That was so cool.
You know what? Good job, France.
France killed it.
We love France.
Aren't we next?
Yeah.
That's good.
Well, but do you know what we did as like our show of like, all right, we're bringing it home to America,
right, we
baby.
took the torch or whatever. What
We
did
had
we do?
Tom Cruise fucking jump into the stadium and then
That's
land
right.
on the Hollywood sign.
Oh, wait, great news, though. I'm seeing they've hired a major filmmaker.
Uh-oh.
No, I was going to say America's Greatest Auteur, Ralston Marshall Thurber.
I just think it'd be funny if it was Macquarie and he was like, oh, I've cracked the ceremony. I cracked it already. It's going to have 18 flashbacks.
No, there's gonna be no plan. We'll figure it out.
We'll explain all the rings being united together over and over and over again.
Right. Cut to 4 years later, 8,000 hours of podcasting that all also sound like therapy sessions. Where he's like, the mistake I made was I was trying to figure out how to not do the torch.
There is
I said, is there a way to skip the torch? And then in post realized we've made a terrible mistake. I have to undo this.
nobody has more turned into a corn cob than Christopher McQuarrie doing that fucking Empire Magazine, like Final Reckoning podcast.
And also Happy, Sad, Confused, and also Light the Fuse.
Those I haven't listened to, but I listened to the Empire one, which I said I wasn't going to. And then you were like, David, you gotta. And I was like, I think I gotta hear like what's going on.
I've basically now started taking the hits and then you just go text me the highlights.
Well, because you're doing all the other one, right? I can't listen to all
I'm
of
just
them.
fast. I feel like I'm finally getting answers. But Ben, you ate the pig.
Right. We really need to close out that important
You
thread.
ate the pig. But
We had a pig roast in our backyard. And then, the next day I come home from work and the apartment kind of stinks. And I'm like, what the fuck? And then Nate presents to me a clean, wet pig skull
Which apartment was this?
when I was in Williamsburg.
oh, so these are old ass.
This is a long
bones.
time ago.
These are old bones.
Yep.
These are old
And
bones.
he just
You
sat
know what
on
else are old bones? These bones right here.
Hey.
Old
Jeez,
bones.
don't get me started.
Exactly. Waking up achy.
Someone's got a birthday coming up.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, look, very on topic because this is a movie that has some of the best on-screen skull washing I have ever seen.
Incredible.
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 This is probably peak wet skull.
There, Ben, am I correct in saying you did not know that much going into this movie?
I heard whispers.
Yeah.
What were the whispers?
Bone Temple.
Now, of course,
As you walked into the Regal, the guy took your ticket and you were like, thank you. He's like, it's Theater 17 bones.
What- I'm sorry, what's that?
Bones.
Oh, okay.
Also, concessions are only on this floor.
Ben, you don't usually care about collectible popcorn buckets, but you were yelling at the Regal employees that there was no collectible Bone Temple popcorn.
I
Is
grabbed
there-
him by his shirt collar and lifted him. in the
Is there
air.
not a
I don't
collectible
No.
bucket?
There's a
I don't think
bucket
there's
for-
anything.
It does. Maybe did they like pitch that to Danny Boyle and he's like, you what?
Maybe
Like,
we don't need a bone.
I think there's so much in this film that is like so profound that it would like cheapen almost. Like,
yeah, there's always a risk with these popcorn buckets that right, you're interfering thematically.
Yeah.
David Vessels. We've changed the
Sorry,
language
they're
to
vessels. But in a way, calling it a vessel makes it a little more respectful. Like that feels more in tune with the way this movie feels about like death, the body,
Yes.
and what remains.
Yes, I agree. This is a movie. You and Marie sat together. Ben and I sat together. It ends. I look over my shoulder. I see that 6 rows behind us, David is literally dancing in the aisle. And I turn to Ben and I go, he's vibrating. You were so
I was pretty amped
on
up
cloud
by
9.
how
And I
good this
felt it.
movie
Like
is.
20 minutes in, I was like, fuck, he's going to be losing it. This is the Simsiest shit. It's checking every box.
That's interesting. I mean, I agree with you, but it's okay. What are the boxes that you felt it check?
Extremely British.
It's so. This is
Well, and-
it's so
yes.
British.
And not just extremely British, but it is like,
True.
in a way I need you to kind of parse because I could tell it was doing stuff and I knew I didn't have
I'll do my
the
best.
algorithm to solve all of it. But in a way that I feel Danny Boyle does a lot
You
is
didn't
like,
have like a Podkova.
is
you know.
about British culture.
Yes.
Like is
Right.
has like insight. Isn't
And-
just like depicting Britishness.
Right.
It's sort of like
generally
And
good
it
at
also
that.
interrogating.
feels
Yes.
like a specific type of Britishers. It felt very like northern
Yeah, it's set where I went to college.
Which
Although I then said that to someone, they went, "You go to college at the Bone Temple?" So I thought that was funny.
Full scholarship, right?
I want to acknowledge my privilege in that sitting next to David for this movie really added like a 4DX element.
It was a 4DX experience.
That, I pity everyone else who's not going to sit next to David.
It's fun to sit next to Marie, who basically anytime anyone like walked in one direction was just like, what's going on? Like, what's gonna happen?
I was freaking out. And David was like, it's okay, you can not Babadook.
Yeah,
Skinamarink it if you need to. Because
as you famously watched Skinamarink largely from inside your jacket,
correct,
as you described it to
us. You can put your headphones in and just hide inside your jacket and you'll be fine. And I'm like, I can't do that for this podcast. Like, I have to pay. My eyes need to witness this film.
I think this movie, maybe you're going to push back on this. I think this movie is intense.
It is.
I don't think it's like profoundly scary.
No, I would agree. Well, it can be disturbing.
It's disturbing, but there aren't like the jump scares where it's super quiet. Like there's
a few.
Yeah,
there's a few kind of the classic zombie.
Okay, the zombies are
it's quiet, and then it goes.
I think it is very visceral, and it's also very like emotionally intense. And the combination
I cried at this movie
of those two things, it's definitely holding you in a space.
Yeah.
Of like intense sensitivity the entire time, but it's not a movie that's like doing things to make you go like, it like once every 10 minutes. It is a movie that is keeping you in that squirmy space.
I think we were kind of trying to figure out why Sony kept the embargo on this movie for so long.
Yeah, it's a bit baffling.
Well, let's also say that we saw many of our friends, past and future guests of this show, were in attendance at the same screening we went to. Thank you, the folks at Sony Pictures, for helping us see this a little early so that we could get this episode out quickly. And you're literally still dancing while we're outside on the street in Union Square. And then like Ehrlich would walk by and he was like, yeah, I'm trying to get my head around it. And you'd go like, fuck you, out of here.
It's a problem.
And Bilga's like, it's interesting. And you were like, nope, bye.
That is a thing that I deal with a lot. Right. And you guys don't see me at press screenings where like, if I am really high on a movie, I do not, you've seen like, I do not want, especially my good and dear friend who I truly love, and sometimes I'm a bit too mean about on this podcast, David Ehrlich.
You did say out loud, fuck Ehrlich.
Coming near me and being like, because sometimes David will outright dislike the movie and be like, oh yeah. And I'm just like, no, bad vibes. They're like, shoot. Because I really just want to walk out of there in a little egg. Like Lady Gaga.
Yes.
And go home in my egg and then hatch out of my egg and write down my thoughts later or whatever.
Right. Or like Mark from work. But sure. I think I like this movie tremendously. I have one bumping point on it that we'll talk about surely, probably soon. But it is incredibly weird. It is a weird film. It is an odd film in every sense, but especially within the framework of like, hell yeah, finally, Danny Boyle returns. He's just not trying. It's not a victory lap movie. It's not a like safe kind of, I'm going back to the proven franchise and doing the same thing again.
But I would say, obviously, he's done this once before. He made T2 Trainspotting. This movie is more straightforwardly entertaining.
Yes.
No question.
Than that was. That was a real kind of like, oh, you wanted this or that from a Trainspotting sequel? You're not going to get it.
I also feel like this can exist. I mean, maybe we'll see how Killian's character comes back.
I think you're right.
But this movie does feel like it exists on its own without the legacy of the
My brother asked
films.
me this on behalf of a friend, being like, hey, my friend's never seen 28 Days. Like, does he need to? And I'm like, no.
No, I mean, you should watch it because it fucking rules.
But like, I was like, I'm sure he knows the other basics of like, there was a zombie thing. That's all you need to know.
I ran into a friend of the podcast, very recent past and future guest, Hillary Busis, online for popcorn.
We love her. And she was there, of course.
And she said, like, I just watched 28 Days for the first time. So I'm like buzzing about ready to go.
Sandra Bullock movie?
Later. And she was like, I saw 28 Days opening weekend in theaters. But then was like, I didn't get to Weeks. Do you think that's going to be a problem? And I said to Hillary, I would be astounded if anything in this movie directly ties into Weeks in any important way. And I was like, and by the way, I saw Weeks in theaters. We rewatched it for the podcast 2 years ago. If they made a vague Weeks connection, I don't think I'd pick up on it. And this movie really does kind of stand on its own. I want to say
it makes one reference to Weeks, which I think is mostly Garland cleaning something up that he doesn't like from Weeks.
Undoing the Paris thing, right? Yeah. Which that ending also felt very tacked on as a like
in Weeks, totally. It's just like, okay, if you want another one of these,
let's see something for the future. That is my only issue with this movie. Is I am like so fundamentally over the multi-part sequel thing. I admire how much this movie really largely stands on its own.
It tells a full story, I would say.
The actual ending of the movie is very much a like Marvel post-credits.
Would it be better if it was post-credits?
I don't know. We were having that discussion
because everyone's so sick of the post-credits,
yep.
right? Because of Marvel.
I'm philosophically sick of the post-credits, and yet once it happened, I'm like, I would kind of rather... The movie has a really good emotional resolution that doesn't close any doors, that is clearly setting you up in a way where you're like, I'd be really excited to see what happens next with this character. But then the ending is a direct tee-up of, here's what we're going to pick up from next time. That feels a little like the ending of an episode of Lost, right? Like a crazy thing.
100%.
You emotionally resolve the conflict of that episode, and then a crazy thing happens in the last 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Ben doesn't know that they have a sequel in a can. He turns to me and he goes, well, that ending was cool, but I kind of wish I could watch a whole movie of that. And I went, Ben, I got great news for you. It's coming in 6 months.
Directed by a friend of the pod, Nia DaCosta.
And not only that, awesome. I said to Ben, and guess what it's fucking called? 28 years later, part 2, The Bone Temple. Yes. And now Ben is in the aisles dancing, telling Ehrlich to fuck off.
Yeah.
I didn't have the 40X experience of the two of you being able to jam on each other's body energy. I did have the moment where I turned to Ben and I hit him and I went, look, and the camera pans out as you see how significant the Bone Temple is, in particular the pillar. And Ben just did like Spielberg face. And I felt like he was on the verge of crying, and then just kind of, maybe without breaking eye contact from the screen, leaned over to me and said, that's a lot of bones.
It's a lot.
So many bones. But oh my God, to see them, it's so moving.
It's moving.
It's so moving.
That's why it rocks.
Yeah.
The Route 1 take obviously is like Mountain of Skulls.
Cool iconography.
News, though.
Yeah.
Right? You know.
Or also just cool visual idea. It's prominent in the marketing. It's the centerpiece of most of the posters. The trailer, which like kind of it broke fucking YouTube records. This trailer like wildly...
I just want to shout out, someone sent us a DM on Instagram after I posted a story on our account from the screening saying that they're a listener and they helped cut the trailer.
Well, the trailer was so good that Boyle put that, piece of
the
radio, whatever you want to call it, the broadcast of the Rudyard Kipling poem in the movie because of the trailer.
Yeah. Oh, interesting.
He was like, in the movie. That rocks. Yeah. Wait, let's just put it in. Like, because that whole sequence in the movie where it's in there is just kind of him being like, well, I loved the vibe.
But that's the interesting thing is that the trailer was, forgive me for being a little lofty here, kind of just like a tone poem. Like people were jamming on it, but when we sat down in the theater, I realized as the lights went down. I don't know
what this is about.
I actually don't know. I know the three actors above the title.
I knew there was the one thing I knew was there was like a colony on an island.
And as good as the trailer was, I was not like rewatching the trailer going like, I wonder what this is. I like let it wash over me and I was like, yeah, it looks cool. And then I sit down and I'm like, I know Fiennes, Taylor Johnson, and Jodie Comer in this. I know Killian isn't. And I know bones are involved. And I actually don't know how this is going to play out. And it is a movie that is like kind of unconventionally plotted. And I kept every 15 minutes going like, I actually don't know what the spine of this movie is.
What's the next act?
Right. I do think that's part of maybe their like embargo fear.
This is what I was going to get at is when we were trying to figure out why they held the embargo for so long. Was it because they didn't want people to know that the main character of the movie was an unknown
I think there's some spoiler fear.
Yeah,
and I think studios can kind of talk themselves out of building buzz for a movie with that.
There are no like crazy twists in this movie, but it is a movie that kind of plays off you being like, I don't know where this is going next.
Right. So I sort of get that.
And I like that feeling of like, not only is the marketing not telling you that the little boy is the main character, the movie starts and you're not sure if he's the main character. He's certainly central, but by the end of the movie, he is the guy.
I was like 90% sure as we were watching the first third of the movie that we would never go back to the island again. It would just be like a survival thing with Aaron Taylor Johnson and the little boy, and Jodie Comer would, I don't know.
I found this whole aspect of it thrilling. I'm watching it going like, I don't know where this is going. I don't understand like exactly what the utility of all these characters are yet. The world building is so incredible, which is a thing where I'm just like, Sims must be buzzing.
But it's also a salute to Garland. Like, well, we have a lot to talk about here, but I just think Garland is so good at that stuff. This movie, I was talking to a friend of the show, Chris Ryan, past and future guest, because he texted me being like, "You've seen it, right? We got to talk about it," you know. And we were both saying like, Garland as writer for hire, essentially, I've missed it a little bit. I like what he does.
Same.
He's doing interesting stuff.
I was mad,
but I kind of like putting some genre guardrails around the guy and being like, you can still be weird.
I'm just gonna say it, like, there's some deeply disturbing shit in the text of this movie, and I feel like Danny Boyle does bring like a sensitivity and a heart.
Yes, there's
He's
an
such an emotional filmmaker,
which Garland doesn't do, and that's what.
Well, I think Garland has a very bleak, dim and bleak view of humanity.
He's clinical. He's very clinical.
I feel like you gotta meet somewhere.
No, I agree.
But that's why I'm like, look, Garland, when he's doing his own thing, it's a totally different vibe, and that's fine. Hey, I support.
We like it.
I think that, you know, privileged British guys who grew up with a lot of culture around them should be making movies all the time. No, I do like his movies a lot. But then it's so interesting to see this former collaborator of his taking on one of his works again. And you're like, right, this was the secret sauce for a reason. Like,
and by the way, like, this movie starts, it's 28 years later. It doesn't spend time holding your hand and explaining to you what's happened in between. I think it very elegantly.
It does. It gives you what you need to know over the course of the movie very, very well.
But it is my favorite kind of like commercial filmmaking where it's like, it trusts the audience to be like, we're going to show you stuff and let you fill in the blanks. And you can fill in the blanks really clearly, right? But there's no fucking info dump.
No. But I do want to say we don't start on 28 years later. We do have the prologue.
We do, yeah.
Which we need to talk about.
We'll talk about it.
No, because we need to talk about Okay, do the joke, and then we have to go into the Teletubbies.
Why did nobody go to an aircraft carrier, though, and write down, like, give an envelope that had, like, the 1st of November 2002 written down on it? You know what I mean? And they open it and it says that.
Information's the death of emotion. I mean, this is my case, is this movie just hits the ground running and you're filling in the gaps, and the things you don't have immediate answers to are engaging, where you're trying to suss out, like, so what is happening here? I think the core animating idea in this movie, which is so obvious, but I didn't think about it, even when it was announced, is like, if it's been 28 years later, this means that, like, this is set in a world in which we didn't solve the problem, but we have figured out a way to rebuild culture around it, right? The idea that
we can live with it.
That we're building this movie around a little boy, and you're like, this is the second generation of children to be born into this world.
Right.
You start the movie with a prologue set basically concurrent with the first film, that is kids who are experiencing the rage virus overtake, and then you jump ahead 28 years, and here's a little kid who, like, theoretically is the children of
the children.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I guess. Like, how old is ATJ, Mr.
I think he and I are around the same age.
They're young parents. I mean, right.
No, I know, but right. So to be like, if you think
he and Jodie Comer, like, maybe they're playing younger, or maybe they're playing people who were 5 when the rage.
That's what I'm saying. If Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing his age, he's playing someone who's about 10, 11, and right, and so he did live life before the apocalypse, but only a little.
Right, they're like the Teletubby kids.
Yes, so
they sure are.
So Teletubbies.
And every weeks also begins in the same way. Like, every movie in this series has begun with a vision of the apocalypse, and then cut to black, and then 28 blahs later.
I just found it, like, in our weird world and the weird years that we've lived through, right? When people go, like, in a post-pandemic, and people go like, we're still in the pandemic. And you're like, right.
That sounds like a Teletubby noise.
That's what this movie is, of just like, something seismic happens. There's no actual hard endpoint to it. we start to figure out like what is the balance of like what aspects of life can we bring back and what has changed us forever, you know? And like this movie just drops you into that, and you're looking at all of what's happening, the things the characters are doing, the actual way the landscape reads on camera, and you're going like, oh fuck, so they must have made this decision 10 years ago. This stuff that just fucking animates the brain.
It's a movie about how to live with death and pain and tragedy surrounding you, and how, you know, the ways in which you can build a life around it. You can resort to violence. You can resort to like militarism, and
also, like, what happens,
or you can resort to what to bone temples.
It's almost like a post-apocalyptic movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like, okay, so like societal collapse happens and then rebuilds, you know? And we're like starting this movie in the reset. And when you realize that's the landscape and that the movie's not going to explain it all, you're like, I totally get why they said, hey, we got 3 movies ready to go, because there's so much you can do here. And this movie kind of focuses on one central emotional story that is a good prism for that as its spine. But as we said, it doesn't even touch on Cillian Murphy. At the end, it tees up a whole nother idea of things where you're like, right, of course, this would happen too. I think we all think it's quite a good film.
I think it's a total triumph.
I love this movie.
I really like it for all the story stuff that you're talking about, but it also just looks so interesting and cool. And it's like, again, the Danny Boyle thing, which was slightly absent in Yesterday. I will, you know, we all felt a little thrown by Yesterday, but generally his whole thing of like, okay, I want to think about a million cool ways to depict all this stuff that you're giving me, right? Like, I'm not just going to do, you know, whatever's expected of a zombie movie. I want to like flip, you know, the visuals as much as I can.
The colors are so vivid. Like,
and that crazy motherfucker, Anthony Dodd Mantle.
Oh my God, fucking Dodd Mantle, man. Like, whoa.
This movie was exclusively shot on iPhones, which I find so fast.
Although they say like with
modifications, lenses and rigs and right. But the base of it is all iPhones, and of course, like 28 Days is one of the original, like,
filmed on a potato.
Right, filmed on a potato movies that look so fucking bad now. It's so funny they announced a 4K Steelbook, and I'm like, what is that going to be?
But looking bad, as we talked about on that episode, it's so part of the gestalt of that movie.
But even that shift of like, at the time, the aesthetic experiment was film on the worst thing possible. And now, quote unquote, the worst thing possible
looks so good.
Looks so fucking good.
It looks better than like 90% of bigger budget digitally shot
the colors
movies.
In this movie alone, you're like, what is the excuse for movies that are shot on like the fucking most expensive cameras in the world, all looking like fucking wet concrete? And this is like a movie that's like set in the post-apocalypse, and you and I were just outside the theater being like, the greens,
the yellows, the reds, the blues. My God, it's so beautiful.
But there was this, it went viral, but this image from filming of this insane rig they made where they surrounded one of the zombies.
It's sort of like a budget bullet time.
And Ben was like, what was that? And I was like, it's like broken bullet time on purpose.
Because it's very choppy.
Yes. Well, because the idea of bullet time obviously is like they're in a green screen and they have a million cameras that takes a picture of every
and
single
so controlled
frame.
And fluid, and then you also slow it down.
Right.
Yeah.
But this was like, if we basically just like take 2 pictures, you know, in a chain, the skipping is also so cool. It felt like a Mortal Kombat fatality.
It felt like video games, but it didn't feel like The Last of Us is a video game. It felt like when they do that scene in the beach where he becomes like, isn't there like a moment in the beach where it's like a video game style, like Leonardo DiCaprio is like running?
The beach.
I thought you were talking about, yes.
No, like, it's very like Game Boy.
Yes,
like
this movie does feel very video game inspired to me, and I think that's a thing to talk about at some point. But yes, like that feels like, and Ben was like, what was that? And I'm just like, Danny Boyle's like fucking 65 now?
I can look it up.
Who else like works at his level and is actually
68.
Wow.
You old bastard.
But like,
and he's still like getting cool music and like finding new visual tricks.
But also not just visual tricks, but it feels like every time, maybe save Yesterday, he's going like, why are we limited to like a set language? Why are we trying to like discover
way we can do this?
Break things and remake things and like explore. Like, it always just feels like he's exploring new boundaries.
And also, to defend him on Yesterday or whatever, like Todd Mantle didn't even shoot that movie, and I'm sure he wasn't like, I need to put the camera in a blender for this one.
For all my problems with that movie looks great.
Looks fine. It's just it's also just not a movie where you need it to look a little more straightforward.
More on rails. That's a work with Richard Curtis.
And then T2 Trainspotting. Honestly, I remember having some cool ideas.
That has some great stuff.
Yeah.
The ending shot in particular is unbelievable.
Right. But it's still a more muted, obviously, experience.
He's also riffing on a kind of visual and editing language that he created.
Yes.
Right. He's returning to
I feel
that.
like this is him being like, look, if I'm going to do another 28 Days Later, that movie was so visually challenging, and I was trying, I can't just, I got to try stuff again. And I can't just do weird DV grain, like I did last time, because that would feel like.
But DV grain was like, well, this makes it feel apocalyptic.
Yes.
We're making a movie.
Idea.
Right. And then this is in a way that syncs up with the themes of the movie. Like, society has moved on.
Nature has returned.
The consumer camera is now good enough to actually shoot a movie on that doesn't look like potato fish.
That's true. But also it's like a movie where they're going back to the mainland, and it's like, there aren't people here anymore. It's beautiful. And scary, a little scary, but I want to capture the beauty of this apocalypse of people are gone.
But this almost
the
sort
Earth
of
might look nice.
Video game structure
Except the occasional
right. The only sort of title card table setting happens at the very beginning, where they say they quarantine the mainland. People have rebuilt sort of society is on the fringes. It is this weird sort of modern day medieval sort of small village.
Feudal
society. Yes. Without totally losing all our trappings. So the kid still lives in a house with a bedroom that has posters on the wall and Power Rangers action figures and whatever.
But all of that stuff is frozen.
Right.
In the late 90s.
Right. He's inheriting and also Boyle is cutting in these comparison points. He's showing you footage of depictions of medieval culture in movies, right?
The Henry V stuff
that we've kind of gone tribal a little bit. And basically there is this video game structure to society, which is the quarantined area, our children age to a point where they can graduate, where they can elect to say, basically, I want to enter the battlefield. And it's kind of like mowing the lawn, right? These people go past the gates with bows and arrows and just try to see if they can knock down some zombies.
And also, you guys wouldn't know this, but essentially where they are is Lindisfarne.
This is what I need. I need you to break
which
this down.
Is a tourist place in Britain. It's called Holy Island, which I think they show you on a map that it's Holy Island, but I think they tried and it's not really Lindisfarne. I do think they shot at least some on the island, on the actual place. They shot it all in the north of England, where it's set, Northumberland. But that is this weird fucking tidal island off the coast with a causeway that you can only access it every so often. And famously, cars are always getting, because there's a road you can drive down, but then cars will get stuck and they have to go rescue the cars. And it's funny. And it is that it's hearkening to, I feel what Garland is clearly interested in, what you're talking about, that return to feudal British life, where it's we have a fortress. We're on an island. Britain's an island nation.
Yeah.
There is that kind of sturdiness to old Brit, where it's just nobody could fucking come here because it's hard to get here. Get all your shit here. The last guys who did it happened in 1066 and it never happened again. Did happen in 1066.
Here's the other thing, and we don't need to talk about this for long, but
so the Vikings came before them. The Vikings would come all the time. And for a while, if you might like this, most of Britain was under Viking control. And it was called the Danelaw, that part of Britain. But then the Normans came and drove the Vikings away. The Normans are the last to invade. They're from the north of France.
What about the Goths?
The Goths were fucking up the rest of Europe, but they never set their sights on Britain.
In England. Okay.
No, they fucked up.
They came back
Rome.
around when
Susie Sue and stuff.
Right,
Yeah.
the Cure. Right.
And then Hot Topic kind of gave them a safe haven.
Yeah, kind of corporatized it, made it a little bland. Right. It's an old Mulaney joke of do you think they wake up in the morning just so bummed out because I gotta put all that shit on my face.
What I was gonna say is this movie, in the way that great movies do, kind of make you start thinking about a ton of other things, right? they just sort of like launch off different streams of thought. I something was coalescing while watching this of like, and I'm not going to harp on this. Just let me say this for like 4 sentences.
He's gonna harp on it.
There's something in the like
Got a harp out.
the messaging of all the weird like grifter manosphere shit.
Oh my god.
What?
Let me say this for 4 sentences.
Wait, where? How do we?
I'm
That
going,
is- that
I'm going
is-
into my egg.
That is about like
Do you have room for me in your egg?
Yeah, come in the
Okay.
egg.
that
going
is
in the
about like we gotta reset. We gotta get back to our programming, right? Like this shit, like fucking paleo diets, and like we need to eat the
We
way the
just-
fucking cavemen
We
ate.
just explained return with a V to you before we got
It's
on
funny
my
that
I
you
don't
didn't
know
know that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
But this is what I'm saying, and like the obsession with the fall of Rome, right? And this idea that we've like lost our programming and whatever. This movie is kind of going like, okay, like is this what you guys want? I don't think it's a retort.
so.
I don't think it's a retort. But you know what I'm
No.
saying? I do
I
think
know
there
what
is
you're
this weird
saying.
obsession, and I think we're stuck in this time
Okay.
that is very much about like.
You're beyond 4 sentences.
Are
This is the
we-
truck-
I'm going off into a slight side tangent off of this.
Oh, okay.
Are we like living on the precipice of like the end of existence, which we've been talking about, like the
Everyone's
fucking
always saying
Y2K canon having that kind of feeling, right? And there's this other sort of version of it now, which this movie is just like, okay, here's like, if things actually collapse, here's what it's like 2 decades later. We have to fucking like incorporate like feudal England into our daily routine while also having like pub hooliganism.
Well, indeed. Yes,
the
I
end of my
don't think there's no Roman Empire shit here, though. I
No.
think the
No, it's
nostalgia
British.
is for
Yeah.
medieval Britain, not in some kind of we need a king way.
No.
But more in that kind of like, yeah, the land
Well,
and the
Are we
sea
talking?
and the
Isn't this also like a Brexit thing too?
oh, for fuck's sake, is it? Oh, God.
Well, it's like
what
no.
do you mean?
Well, just the whole
Well,
like
you mean like the whole of Europe does kind of want to draw a line or still
Right,
going
like,
around
we
Britain and
need,
be like,
like,
don't go there.
this sort of return to like British nationalism and like a specific identity and like. But I don't think that is
this
necessarily.
movie is not about a national identity.
I don't think it's I don't think it's explicitly about a national identity, and that like I think there are allusions to nationalism. The fact that they still have the portrait of the Queen up, which I thought was
kind of a
funny.
well, but that's one of the many gags Garland's getting at, that
Yeah.
you're not clocking until the final gag as a Brit
Yes,
of like, right, time stopped in
for the
2002.
UK in 2002.
Yes.
Not now.
Right.
Yes,
We're in an alternate timeline.
yes,
Right.
And I also think
Now, did the Queen get the rage virus?
she had to
Absolutely.
have. But I also like.
She ate the corgis.
Aw.
No.
I also like the sort of the long history of like British folk horror.
Yeah,
Sure.
man. Which
Yeah.
Garland is obviously so interested by,
Yeah.
and Men is so
Yes.
interested in the Green Man and stuff like
And
that.
so like you have some of the aspects of this new island society do feel very like the masks. It does seem very ritual based, which to me feels like it's part of like that lineage.
But also this sense of ritual of like when you are a teenager, if you feel up to it, they go like, okay, you fucking practice your aim long enough, you can try to go take down some fucking zombies. And they give this very bracing speech where they're like, you get what the rules are, right? If you fall, no one comes back to rescue you. We lost too many people that way. When you walk past this point, you understand that you are ostensibly fending for yourself.
yeah, it's like you're climbing Everest or whatever, where it's like, look, you'll probably come back, but we're not going to come get you. Yeah.
But it's like, it's a version of like a draft. It's a version of a like, cultures that didn't allow youth to have a youth, where they're like, at some point we've just decided like, you're a man now and you got to fucking solve the problem and we're throwing you at it as a body.
It made me think of Walkabout.
Yeah, sure. Walkabout, any kind of teenage, sort of ancient ritual of like, now this is how you become a man, is
It's
like
a vision
you go and live
quest,
by
right.
yourself for a month, or you go into the wilderness, or exactly.
It's all of that, but combined with this, like, and by the way, this is life and death stakes. There being this weird sport to it, because as we've said, it's like the thing is contained, right? They're doing this like you have to question how much for fun, how much for pride, how much for identity, and how much do they still kind of believe 28 years later, okay, if we keep chipping away at this, maybe in 50 years they're all gone? I don't know.
Oh, no, I don't think so. I mean,
I don't think so
no,
either.
no one on the island, no one in this movie talks about like way back to Britain. They're like, we live on our island.
Right.
Yeah. The first movie ends with the notion that the zombies will starve. They mention this, like that like if we just kind of wait long enough, we can starve them out and, you know, stop whatever the pandemic is, whatever the virus is. And Boyle has had to, obviously, with this, be clear, like, no, they figured out ways to survive. They ate worms and shit.
Sure. But also us trying to kill them means that we're constantly feeding them.
Yeah, but
even if not in the numbers.
There's not too many people left. I mean, the implication you get, and we'll see what these future movies have, is that like the most there is are these little towns, right? Like these, like that's like
hamlets,
the extent of civilization
that are isolated.
And if someone from Europe shows
Britain,
up, the rest of Europe is still going.
Right.
And
they're basically the only place that
Because
is
it's an
still
island.
dealing
They
with these
quarantine.
conditions.
That turn back, that reset the clock,
quarantine.
basically.
Yeah.
Yeah. This movie opens with the Sony Pictures logo and the familiar sounds of the Teletubbies theme song. A moment where I just immediately went, fuck, this thing's going to be dancing in David's brain. Already Boyle is doing the like, what is British culture and what is our relationship
so,
to
David,
it thing.
please give me your interpretation of the Teletubbies.
And then we have this prologue where a bunch of children are told by their parents, like, just sit here and watch this.
The Teletubbies.
It is like a really insightful kind of like a scene we didn't get in the previous two films. But like, yeah, if you have kids that small where they can't really wrap their heads around what they're doing, you put all the kids in a room, you go like, just watch the TV show.
Doesn't 28 Weeks have
28 Weeks has kids, and then
but that whole
that
first scene
opening
in
is
28
very
Weeks
different.
is so disturbing too, right? Because
it's like when they run to the boat.
Yeah.
But
no, this is very distressing. But indeed, I do think Garland and Boyle maybe pick Teletubbies for a reason. One, it's period appropriate. But two, Teletubbies is post-apocalyptic. I'm not the only person to have this interpretation.
It is like these weird creatures have built some new society on the
or something. They feel like radioactive creatures because they're colorful. They live in a bunker, right? Like their home is
their tummies are TVs.
Their tummies are television, so they've got this sort of like cyborg like energy to them, right?
Their best friend is like a fucking mutated vacuum cleaner.
Yeah. That's what I love about Teletubbies is that there's no one here, but there's a voice like that comes through the tubes.
Yeah.
And there's a face in the sky. So there's this sort of sense
that is
of like
friendly.
There's something happened to Earth.
Yes.
And we all left, but we're sort of monitoring this weird situation.
But much
now,
like this
trying to grow new people, maybe.
It's like a beautiful,
like
lush,
babies.
post-apocalyptic landscape.
With bright
You're
colors.
like, right, this is the brightest sun.
Yeah.
And the greenest grass.
And then they get these, part of Teletubbies is that they watch videos on their tummies that are of real kids.
But it feels like transmissions from the past.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what's so, and then of course, and they eat goo and pancakes. They eat this like sort of what feels like, kind of bunker food. Anyway, it's all great. Naughty Nunu, of course, is their friend, the vacuum cleaner.
I forgot that was his name.
Naughty Nunu.
Yes.
I remember when Teletubbies debuted in Britain, I was saying this to Marie, Teletubbies is this
It's
like
97 or 90?
97, designed by child psychologists, where they're like, let's make a show that actually speaks toddler language rather than like English.
Pre-K.
It's one of those shows where when it aired, every grown-up who didn't have kids was like, what the fuck is this? And the media had a field day making jokes about how bizarre it was. And then you put any kid in front of it, or even turn on a TV with a kid 4 rooms away and like a magnet. It was just like, this is speaking directly to my brain.
I will say I put it on for my daughter once and she did not respond to it very strongly. And my wife was like, turn this off. It's disturbing me, which I understood. Like, it is a bit odd. I was obsessed with it when I was 11 when it arrived for the, this kind of like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
So
My
weird.
sister Romley was born in 98. I think it maybe doesn't start airing on
it probably took a year or
US
two to make it to
until
America.
98 or 99, but I would absolutely watch it with her because I was fascinated by how strange it was.
And obviously there were the dumb social controversies that emerged from it. But the first controversy was more the kind of thing of like, should children even be watching TV at this age? Because it's sort of what it's advancing
is
is
this
like
indoctrination.
Yeah, like shouldn't 18
getting them addicted to the
18-month-old
screens.
be in front of a screen at all, right?
And it's like a fucking show about screen tummy creatures.
It is. And it's also very boring to watch because they repeat everything. And you're like, why do they repeat everything? And again, the child psychologists are like, toddlers like repetition. Tag yourself, I said to Marie. Who are you? I know who you are, but tag yourself. Marie's obviously Lala. That one is not in dispute.
Okay, you said you got stuck on me. I'm curious to hear how.
So I feel like, unfortunately or fortunately,
You're
also,
Tinky Winky.
I'm very
You're
obviously
100%
Tinky
Winky.
Winky. That's not,
That's not in question.
those two are not tough.
But
so then we had
I
Dipsy
think I'm
and Poe.
Poe.
We
Yes.
agree that you're Poe.
Yeah.
And Ben is obviously Dipsy.
yeah, so I don't understand what the confusion
I'm
was
who?
here.
Dipsy.
What's Dipsy?
Tinky Winky,
Di-
So
Dipsy,
Dipsy's green.
la la, pow.
You know, they all have a thing, and Dipsy's thing is that he has a hat that's a cow print, like a sort of top
Look him
hat.
up. You are so
look him up.
Dipsy.
Dipsy's into fashion.
Dipsy's fairly extra, like tends to have a lot of, and so I was like, oh, Dipsy's performative. Like
Dipsy's got like the curly Q.
no,
on the hat?
Dipsy's got a straight point.
Yes.
Oh, okay.
So the thing about Dipsy is like, if I'm thinking like, which one
Lala
of these,
is curly.
which one of these fucking
Poe has a
Teletubbies
circle.
would be a
Tinky Winky has a
skateboarder?
triangle.
For me, that is Dipsy. Dipsy would be the skateboarder. Lala is like the little
Poe is
princess.
the baby.
Poe's a
Poe
little
is
guy.
baby.
Poe's a
Poe,
little
but he
guy.
also is kind
Well, it's a
of
little
this-
girl. Poe is
Poe is like the
girl-coded.
center of
Poe's a little
everything
one.
now. And
Poe
also
is
we
the
were
baby.
like, Poe can't do things, you can't drive.
Yeah, Poe can't drive, right?
I
Poe
don't think
definitely
so.
can't drive.
Yeah.
Well, I think Poe has a scooter. if I remember.
Well,
I had
we
a
all
scooter.
know Griffin did have a scooter.
I was into scooters and fucking inline skates.
Poe's favorite object is her scooter, which of course she calls Poe-cooter.
That makes sense.
And
I
Ben,
feel
are
like-
you looking at Dipsy now?
Yeah, I like his hat.
His hat's good. I mean, his hat's good. The only thing with Dipsy, I will say, and I will acknowledge this for all listeners, is Dipsy is black. Like Dipsy's skin is darker,
Wait, Dipsy's black?
and Poe is sort of Asian. Like they
Wait,
made.
what?
I'm sorry to blow everyone's mind. They made some effort to acknowledge racial diversity when they created the characters, which is funny because they are aliens.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Like it's one of those things where you're like, huh? But it's very when you watch it, you're like, yes, Dipsy has darker skin.
I thought
Like,
he was just tan.
Right. They have
okay.
they have different tones. I think to say they are black and Asian is to imply that
You
they
can look this up.
abide by our
Like society that race, the construct of race,
Right.
has made it to the Teletubby world.
yes.
Yeah. I just don't.
Wait,
I don't.
the creators of Teletubbies have stated that Dipsy is black. I had no idea.
Yes, it was. Again, they're like, we want this to reflect the kids who are watching it. For them to see things. Yada yada yada. I'm obviously Tinky Winky, who's an absolute unit, who is also a little fabulous, I suppose.
Yes.
And
Do you remember the Tinky Winky controversy, Ben?
Little handbag.
I kind of recall. Please refresh my memory.
Jerry Falwell was like, Tinky Winky is gay. He carries a handbag.
he
He's
wears a
purple.
dress sometimes. He'll wear
Wears a
tutu.
dress.
Yeah.
And did they have a problem with the triangle? Did they?
Yeah.
Some
the
people thought the
triangle's also
triangle
part of
was,
it.
and the purple coloring was subtle coding.
Well, the purple, yes, but I'm trying to remember what they read
The triangle, I
as.
think, is a sign
the
of
pink triangle has always been
Okay.
a sign of queerness.
They were just basically every part of Tinky Winky is indoctrination.
Lala's object, of course, is a ball. I just want to point that out. Big ball. You like a big ball? Who doesn't?
This is a
really?
clean tag yourself, I gotta say.
I think
Yeah.
it's pretty clean.
Yeah.
I think we were just unsure if you would recognize that.
But
you
also,
were Poe.
Lala and Tinky Winky were layups that like a child could do. It was
Yeah.
just a little bit more.
You know
of a
what were also
question.
layups? Dipsy and Poe.
Okay,
Yeah.
fine.
Yeah.
Well, the opening scene's quite distressing. Now, I don't know if you guys agree, but I'm pretty sure the blonde child we see in this opening scene is Jack O'Connell,
Yes.
Yes,
right?
because
Like-
of the
The
cross
cross.
necklace.
Right. And so initially, of course, I'm watching the scene being like, okay, I guess this is this the origin of one of the characters we're going to
Correct.
spend time with.
I-
It's Aaron
yes.
Taylor
I-
Johnson.
You kinda clock,
you know.
like,
Right.
no,
I
it's
assumed
not.
it was Aaron
Right.
Taylor Johnson, but it's basically a standalone coda that does not tie directly back into anything until the final scene, which is the tee up.
But it does have this culty
Oh my God.
overtone
The-
when he goes to see the priest.
which
right.
is his father.
I wasn't sure about
I
that.
think
He
it was-
says father.
but,
Well,
of
but
course,
that's
one
what's
does address
tricky.
a priest as father.
I read it
So-
as also being his dad.
I think
I
it's
did
his
too,
dad.
but then I was second guessing myself. I
Yeah.
don't know. And we mean
I think,
it's,
and then the fact that he's
it's a little chaotic.
Movie doesn't give you
the
clear
fact
answers.
that the guy is like really excited about being, mauled to death by rage zombies.
Because he's basically like, this is God's will. If
This is
this
the
is
judgment.
happening, it's because
That's fucking crazy, man.
And then he immediately turns and you're like, what a waste. What a stupid thing you just did.
No, but that's the thing about the rage virus. It gets you within seconds, which is why it doesn't spread beyond
you
England.
Turn fast, but also then you get to run fast.
And you get to hang dong.
Yeah.
Well, if you're very lucky.
We get out of this movie, we turn our phones back on, and our thumbs are catching on fire, texting the Doughboys, going, 28 years later is maybe the hog movie of the decade. And I can't believe we've gone this long without calling it out. This is...
They're swinging some sledgehammer.
Fucking wide release studio picture.
True. Weird British studio picture, but you're not
There
wrong.
are some absolute units flapping around.
At one point, I went to David. I was like, forearm.
Yeah.
Forearm. And then I did this. I did this little
that
forearm.
big boy. Yeah.
And I said as always, I said, by the way, sneaky sack movie.
Yeah, no, sure, you're right. You spend so much time thinking about the dicks. Let's not forget the sack.
And there's even a couple shots where Boyle's doing some weird camera angles, and you're just like, you're really going to just let the sack get that close to the lens?
Do you guys know about Scrotox?
So is that getting Botox in your balls?
Much like the world building of 28 years later. I don't know about it, but I can start to fill in the gaps with the information I've been given.
Apparently someone on this Bravo show, The Valley.
Why would you want to smooth out wrinkles? You don't want unwrinkled balls. That's going to look weird.
Worse.
So I thought Scrotox, so someone on this reality show got this procedure, which is Botox for your balls. And I thought it was to remove the wrinkles.
For the balls or for the sack?
I don't know.
It's for the sack.
The
it's for the
sack?
scrotum.
Okay.
For the scrotum.
The
scrot. But it's not just about the wrinkles. It's about keeping them hanging low.
Why would you want to? Okay, whatever.
That's a temperature
low.
control.
Yeah, that's a temperature
That's
thing.
gravity.
It's gravity, but it's also your body heat. If you're if you're warmer, they
but
go
you know
further
how
away.
when you get women get Botox in their underarms so they don't sweat? I think this just paralyzes the scrot so it doesn't suck up as much. Because I think people find that, apparently it's an aesthetic thing.
Okay, I'm taking out the gavel, and my ruling is all of this sucks.
You're not pro Scrotox?
I'm not mad at you for bringing it to our attention, but I'm mad at it for being
It only
a
lasts
thing.
3 or 4 months, so you gotta keep going back.
Oh, fun. Great. So 3 times a year, I get someone injecting my balls? Sounds worth it.
It's an outpatient procedure, according to Healthline here.
Yeah, and I bet when you walk out, that's a clean walk with 0 irritation. I'm glad they don't keep you overnight because
it takes anywhere from 2 to 4 minutes.
Sprinting out of there.
Wow.
They do recommend that you call a variety of licensed, reputable providers before you get your Scrotox done to compare costs. You don't want to just take the first price you're given. Right. Exactly.
Does Wirecutter have Scrotox recommendations? Because it's not just like go for the cheapest. It's like depends on what you want out of it.
Did you see Men?
Yeah.
Did you like it?
Yeah, you know what? I didn't see.
Remember when he made a movie called Men?
I do.
Everyone was so normal about that.
I liked it okay. I mean, I'm like, the thing with Garland is even when he doesn't totally hit for me, I find the ideas so provocative. And I do think he's become a very good visual stylist. And I'm like, that movie feels a little bit, it has a little bit of Twilight Zone syndrome to me. But also he's throwing enough in there that it doesn't feel like it's just stalling one idea. Twilight Zone syndrome is...
This is something that can fill 30 minutes of TV, but...
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah. And I think most bad Twilight Zone syndrome movies just stall for time and get you stuck in a middle, right? And Men, he's just like, well, here's my core animating idea, and that's basically a short story.
Where was Angus T. Jones?
2.5 Men. The movie's not called Half Men.
No, it's
called Men.
It's a sequel. It's set 1.5 entries before the sitcom.
And you might remember that Ashton Kutcher, John Cryer, and Charlie Sheen all had prominent roles in the movie Men. Angus T. Jones was on the sidelines. I like that movie. All right.
I'm just thinking about it. I mean, some of it
I really loved.
I was thinking about the folklore thing that you said, because that movie has the Green Man, which is similar, right? Like kind of like let's think about Britain even before the Normans came here, right? Like let's think about like kind of Celtic Britain. And it has the Sheila and the Gigs.
I'm so into that.
Yeah, I know. And he's into it too. And I'm into it. And I'm going to start a Manosphere podcast where I'm like, specifically Stonehenge shit. We need that. That's the route to masculinity or whatever.
Like, this is the thing.
Which again, this movie doesn't have too much of that,
No,
but the Bone Temple stuff, the third act stuff, has a strand of that in its DNA. Although I also think it has this strand of like, essentially Ralph Fiennes doing like public art. Right? Like the Angel of the North, which is a big...
Just to be clear,
you know,
I don't think this movie is commenting on the manosphere.
I know. Well,
watching this movie made me think about the manosphere in a different way, where I'm like, is there this core underlying thing that there is this feeling that existence has become overwhelming and unmanageable?
So you're saying you relate to this now. You're seeing it from their perspective.
I'm reacting very differently, but there are pockets where I think the core idea is this, like, do we got to get back to something primal, right? And I think that's out of a panic. And I think this movie is sort of like contending with those same instincts, not in the same way, but also guys who see at the end of the movie have a little bit of manosphere energy. Who fucking knows? I don't know.
I'm not.
We'll get to them. We'll get to them. We'll get to them.
Now, Ashton Kutcher has one Screen Actors Guild Award nomination.
Oh my God.
He's got one nomination?
Yes. Yeah, now it's for an ensemble, you know, but even that's sort of surprising.
For a movie ensemble?
Yeah. It's crazy that they handed this one out. You'll never, ever get it.
Wait, no, we're going to get it.
No, you're not.
We're
But he
going to
has
get it.
5 Razzie nominations.
That makes sense.
Yes.
He doesn't have that many movie roles. So I'm like, it's not Dude, Where's My Car? It's not fucking The Guardian. It's not New Year's Eve.
I don't think it would be Butterfly Effect.
It's not Butterfly Effect.
You don't think it was Butterfly Effect?
It's not Steve Jobs.
Well, he's not in that.
Is it Cheaper by the Dozen?
He is, or he's in Jobs.
He's in Jobs.
It's not Cheaper by the
Huge
Dozen.
distinction. No.
Is it one of the Valentine's Day, New Year's Eve?
No,
ones?
Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for outstanding performance by a cast in a motion picture.
David, is it his role must be small, right?
It's an ensemble film, I'll tell you that much. I've never seen it, but I believe everyone's role in it is kind of small.
I know what it is, because it is one of the most absurd SAG ensemble nominations.
Exactly.
Where you're just like, they truly just went most ensemble cast.
Yeah, isn't it Valentine's Day or New Year's Eve or
It
something?
is Emilio Estevez's Bobby, is it not?
Wait,
Yep.
what?
Correct.
Yeah.
Oh my God, I forgot about Bobby.
A movie that has 4 trillion actors in it.
Got Lindsay Lohan in it.
It does. But that's why I was like, I don't know for a fact that Ashton Kutcher's in it, but he must be in it.
Correct. I don't know what his role is.
I don't even.
Fisher.
Great.
That's a scary. Nick Cannon and Harry
This is what I'm saying.
Belafonte.
Everyone's in that movie.
Yeah.
Krumholtz is in the movie. Scoot McNairy.
Of course.
He's been nominated for Worst Actor 3 times by the Razzies for Jobs. In 2011, a combo of Killers and Valentine's Day. And in 2004, a triple combo of...
Butterfly.
Nope. Cheaper by the Dozen, Just Married, and My Boss's Daughter.
Wow.
That's kind of
so
a
that was
weird
sort
one.
of the launch
Like,
pad
I kind of
here.
we're sick of you. And then he also got a Worst Screen Couple nod for Just Married and My Boss's Daughter, shared with Brittany Murphy and Tara Reid. That also seems rude to me. And he got a Worst Screen Couple nod for What Happens in Vegas. Like, I'm like, none of those movies are that good. But like, I mean, like, did they hurt anyone's feelings? Like all those dumb Kutcher rom-coms? Like, they were fine.
Look, we talk about it a lot. The Razzies are super chauvinistic. they hate women's movies and they hate male stars in women's genres, right? Like they'll slam like dumb meathead Stallone shit, but the amount of like across the board major nomination films that are romance films, whether drama or comedy, and especially erotic thrillers, they hate.
Yes. Yeah.
Yes.
They don't like boobs.
No.
Or they like to yell at people for having them or something.
Yeah.
So 28 years
This
later.
movie jumps ahead after the prologue, the little table setting of the quarantine, the one title card.
I got so excited they used the same font.
28 years later.
Good
dot,
for
dot,
them.
dot.
And also, right, the exact same iconography, the fade to black.
The movie's building to like, right, a point of mania, and then it just goes quiet and the title card comes up. And the main structure we're introduced to is this small house in a small village on an island where Aaron Taylor Johnson and Jodie Comer are parents to a young boy. He's 12. What's the Spike?
Spike is his name.
This
He's
guy
played by
Alfie Williams or something. Alfie something.
Alfie Williams.
Yeah.
He has very few credits before this. I've certainly not seen anything.
No,
He
I think
basically has no credit.
I think
Yeah.
this is his debut.
Boyle,
He's from Yeah, Newcastle.
Sneaky good with child actors.
So good with kids.
I said to Marie,
Yes.
I was like, millions, baby.
Millions and fucking Slumdog.
Yep.
Dog, baby.
Like, how much of Slumdog becoming a phenomenon was just that people couldn't believe how good the kid performances were for the
Absolutely.
first
No, the kids are
30
so cute.
minutes. Yeah. And right, you're sort of slowly filling in the information of this kid is being prepped for some rite of passage, which turns out to be, as we said, this sort of like going past the gate, entering the mainland. What's the fucking the term for put the
Notching
quiver?
an arrow?
Yeah, sure, whatever. Fuck you.
What did I do?
I don't know. I'm angry that I didn't have the language at my
Are you
fingertips.
an archer, David?
No, I always found it very hard. And like, I actually appreciated when they have him draw before he goes out. And they're like, yeah, you're not wobbling. Because that's the thing when you're a kid, you're like, yeah, it's easy, right? It's a big string. You just go like this and then you pull it and you're like, this is kind of like shaking in my
Cartoons
hands.
make it look like it's a rubber
Yeah.
band and you just
Right.
go boing.
I've never shot an arrow.
It sucks.
Have you
kinda
shot
hard.
an arrow, Ben?
No.
It hurts your hands.
Yeah, I think it sucks and is for losers.
Did something happen to you at summer camp or something?
Yeah.
This is screaming.
Yeah, my
like,
parents made me go to fucking sports camp with my brother and I had to do all this shit and I hated it.
But I feel like archery is the one where like a kid like you would have a good chance.
No, I was bad at it. I have no fucking arm strength.
I have thrown a bunch of axes.
Well, of course.
And I
and that
actually-
became such a bougie,
Yeah.
Brooklyn bar thing.
And I weirdly was so good
Fucking
at it.
bachelor
It was,
party.
What do you
kinda
mean
fucked up.
weirdly? I feel like you would be really good at throwing axes.
I mean, yeah, I don't know. I took to it immediately.
Yeah. That's not surprising at all. Aaron Taylor Johnson's this kid's young dad who this feels like Aaron Taylor Johnson trying to bridge the gap between he has in the past when I've talked about him, he is one of the actors I am most allergic to. And it was always when Aaron Taylor Johnson is playing charming, I shut down. I'm like, fuck off. The last 4 or 5 years, it feels like he's really started to lean into being a little bit of a shitbag and being a little greasy, and he's starting to win me over. And this is sort of putting a like, he is fundamentally a good dad into a guy who just seems a little too slick, a little brash. Right?
Slick. No one's really slick because it's a pretty dirty movie.
Yeah.
But like, I know what you mean in terms of like his charm or his kind of like, yeah, it'll be all right. That kind of.
He's playing a lad.
He's a lad. Yes.
Yeah, he's a bit of a Jack the Lad.
Yes.
I
liked him in this.
I agree.
Yeah.
I think he's good in the movie. I
Yeah.
generally have I turned around on him with Outlaw King, which
I
was the
never saw
first
that,
time. Yeah, nobody ever did.
Right.
The first time he played what he's doing now. So like big beardy guy
Yes.
who's like, roar. And then it was like Tenet,
yes.
Bullet Train, which
He's really good in both of the Leech movies. For whatever complaints you
that
have
movie
with him,
kind of irritates me, but he's having fun.
he's
Fall
really
Guy.
good. Yep.
I
I feel like there was another one.
Well, the other one's Nosferatu,
Well, yeah. I also just right.
which
Him and Nosferatu. He's just I don't even know how to
he's
describe
so
that
oddly
performance.
cast in that movie. I didn't hate the performance.
I mean, I thought it was really funny.
it's such
him
a
in the
weird
movie.
part of that movie.
Yeah.
Is that part?
I mean, I'm thrilled at the notion that Kraven the Hunter, which by the way, I don't think he's terrible in. You still have not seen that movie, right?
which one?
Kraven the Hunter.
No, I keep meaning it's on HBO or
When
something.
you
right?
finally
gotta,
watch it,
I gotta
I'm going to
join
get
the hunt.
40 texts from you.
Yeah,
It is the kind of
But-
bad movie that you're going to get hyperfixated on a bunch of elements
I
being like,
believe you.
but fuck, Crow's really good. in it."
Well, that's why I want to watch it. Have you seen, by the way, that Crow's playing? Is it Himmler? Or no, it's not Himmler. It's some Nazi, right?
Okay.
If they're making a Nuremberg movie,
Great.
which like it's like we've done that.
Perfect.
We've
But
done that a lot.
yeah, exactly. But I believe for this fall we're getting a new Nuremberg movie. Oh, he's playing Goring, and that's what I just where they're like, Russell, we want you to play one of the Nazis on trial, and he was like, was there a husky Nazi? which Nazi like to pound the steins?
I just think that a blessing in disguise for everyone, including ATJ, that Kraven the Hunter seems to have killed his Bond hype. And I'm like, that's the worst thing we could do with him at this point in time. He needs to keep the beard. He needs to constantly play characters who are like 2 pints in. The hair needs to be greasy as hell.
I agree with you that he shouldn't be Bond, but I don't think that him being Bond is out of the question because whatever whatever watchmaker, like Omega or whatever, just signed him to a thing, which is they're like, this is the way that they
People are freaking
prep
about
for
the
bonds.
Omega thing.
I didn't
Yeah.
clock the Omega thing.
I mean, everyone assumes that now that Bond is fully in the hands of MGM, Amazon, that an announcement's coming soon. Because they picked two like huge producers, obviously.
Pascal and Heyman.
Right. They're very much trying to be like prestige, like we are putting our best people on this, you know. It will surprise me if they pick him. I think he's just a horrible choice for
A horrible
James Bond.
choice.
Like I really like
Bad for
and if
Bond,
I'm-
bad for him.
that's the thing. If I'm his agent, I'm like, you better be really sure you want to do this because it will
Yeah.
completely derail everything you've been doing.
And it absolutely felt like he
and maybe you do. Maybe you want to be
spent,
James Bond.
like
I mean,
8 years actively running for it. But it feels like in the effort for him trying to get that part, he ended up identifying what he actually should be
Right,
doing,
which
which
is
is the
not bad.
polar opposite of Bond.
unless James Bond's about to, be
a
like
mad lad.
pounding pints rather
Right.
than drinking martinis.
So that's this character, right? The mother is Jodie Comer, who is stuck with some sort of mystery illness, is upstairs in
Bedridden.
bed.
Yeah.
She's almost like a fucking Mrs. Haversham.
right. She's hot, like temperature wise. She's somewhat delusional.
She's having hallucinations.
Like she's having hallucinations.
She's
or
having
dementia.
manic
got
kind of mood
headaches.
swings.
Right. She's sort of slipping in time or
Yes,
whatever.
she seems, yes.
No one else in the movie is really talking about it, although it does seem like people are aware because there's the older guy who comes and
I
helps.
think that's his grandfather.
I
That's
assume
That's her
so.
dad, I think,
assume
right?
so.
Yeah, who she talks about later in the film. But it is like, it's another good idea of like, hey, you know what would be the situation 28 years later? We like have gotten rid of fucking medicine. We've gotten rid of
We don't have
doctors
any, right?
and healthcare, you know? And like her dad, the grandfather, this elderly man at some later point refers to a character as a GP. And the kid goes,
Right,
what
what's a
is
GP?
that?
Okay, but I'm stupid. I also was
General
like, what? I
practitioner.
thought it was a military thing. And then they explained
That's
it. I was
what
like,
in
oh,
Britain.
a
That's what you
doctor.
call your. What do you call primary care physician? Is what
Yeah.
you call it here. And in Britain, you just call your GP.
I feel like I always say GP.
I used to work at a GP's office. I was the receptionist.
Oh my God, I'm sure you did a great job.
I think I did fine.
Did you have an accent at that point, or did people go like, who the fuck are you?
I mean, I always
You're like, hello, doctor's office here.
that. I did talk like the movie phone man. It
You
was
did.
weird.
Well, that's how you had to talk on the phone at that point in time. People don't know that.
I was like 17 years old, so I had my silly accent that I had, which was
What accent did you have?
You
I
had
mean,
your fucking,
I've called it a transatlantic
your
accent.
Mark Ronson.
If you want to watch like home videos of me at the time,
I
like,
do.
I'll
Please send
find
them.
them sometime. But like, certainly
UK's
British
funny film
people
videos.
thought I had an American accent, and
Sure.
I did. I mean, I had largely, but
But American people said, why the fuck are you talking like
But
that?
did you sound like
Yes.
Madonna?
that's what I always say. I sounded like Madonna. Like I just sounded like an American person who just, for one, I spoke in so many British idioms, but for two, there is a weird tinge to my
Mhm.
voice.
The mother is just kind of like fucked. And as you said, no one really talks about it because like the nature of this reality is, well, there's like no way to cure her. We're not going to like euthanize her. So she's just upstairs, right? And it basically feels like they're just sort of like, well, she'll just run her course. There's nothing we can do.
Yes.
We have no answers.
And I immediately fell for, I think, a trick that the movie's playing of like, I start to wonder, like, does she have the rage virus?
This clearly
in some,
must
like,
be connected in
slow
some
acting way.
Right. I didn't think she had the rage virus, but I thought, I'll tell you what my actual fear was. Are they setting up some magic blood thing? That she is some weird evolution that they will
Well,
figure
that's
out
what they-
actually within her physical
Yeah.
condition
That's what
contains.
they kind of do in 28 weeks later.
They do. Because
right?
in 20 weeks later, there's the concept of people who are immune or whatever.
Yeah.
Which, again, I feel like Boyle and Garland are like, we don't want to deal with
Right, but I was like, well, I could see them doing something where they're like, the immunity comes at a great cost, right?
Yeah.
The immunity is a sickness that takes away from you.
Now,
Right.
to spoil this movie.
It's
which
not doing that at all.
I know. Right.
Which
to spoil
rules.
this
Yeah.
movie, I think it is the crux of what Garland is doing with the movie and Boyle is doing with the movie, which is basically like people still die in normal ways too. Like even though the world has ended, she's sick and it's sad and it's a thing the kid has to go through.
But it's
And it's
remember
right.
you will die.
Memento Mori.
it is the inciting incident.
But it is not some plot magic, and it is not some.
Do you know what I was thinking the whole time
big
that
twist
happened?
or whatever?
When it was revealed that she had cancer.
Which Marie said to me early on, and
I was like, she's got cancer.
She was like, Marie was like,
But
she has brain cancer.
You know, when we talked about Mission Impossible, we were talking about Luther and how we didn't like that he just didn't die from being ill, that he had to die in some like savior-esque way that was like connected to the plot versus connected to themes.
Which, by
And
the
I
way,
was
I've
like-
heard that the reason he's sick is because in order to build the fucking poison pill, they have to build that room around him, which is essentially a giant Faraday cage. So him programming the thing that can stop the entity is the
Made
thing
him
making
sick,
him
which is
sick.
a cool idea.
And
Why
of
don't they
course,
talk about
they
that in the
cut that
movie?
out of the movie.
Okay. Wow.
Sorry, Marie, finish your point.
No. My point was just like, oh, this movie is doing what we wanted the other movie to
Well,
do.
because it's telling the whole story through these characters, you know, and is like telling you what they know and not telling you what they don't know, and like investing you in the same mysteries that like drive their lives. The real inciting incident of this movie is he goes out for this ritualistic first time on the mainland with his dad, which clearly kind of shakes him.
And I also love that it's pretty quick.
Yeah.
You know, we're on the causeway and then getting out of there within 15 minutes of like, all right, baby.
I thought that was going to be the movie.
Me
I did too.
Yeah.
Right. They get stuck, shit happens.
And I am
which is
thinking,
what
like,
happens.
then what does Jodie Comer have to do in this film, right? I also was sort of like, are they going to fucking Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor Johnson? Is the movie going
I
to
had
be
that thought too.
because
Sure.
they set up so much you can't go back and save people? I'm like, the misdirect is you think the kid's in danger, his dad's going to die, and the movie's
And the
going to
kid's
be
gonna be
how
stuck
does he
on the
make it
island.
back?
Yeah.
Right.
That's
And,
what I was assuming. Instead, what happens is they go on a run. He kills some zombies. He's overwhelmed by some of it, a lot of it.
Right.
Well,
he kills the easy zombie.
We got to talk about
struggles with the
these
scary
zombies are new.
one. The idea is that it's been so long that some zombies have gotten fat because they eat so much worm.
And they like walk on all fours. They're
It's
like
pretty
deers.
cool.
We also see
But they're like
deers,
they're
but-
like worms themselves. They're kind of just like writhing on the ground, right? Like moving really
They
slowly.
kind of look like the whale.
Look, it's not untrue that they kind of look like the whale.
but they're also
slimy like slugs.
Right.
Yeah.
And at no point does the whale in the movie The Whale go on the ground.
Yeah,
He
David
could.
just did a perfect impression. But
Just imagine a horizontal.
and David, remind me, how does Killer Croc swim in the movie Suicide Squad?
Wait, I don't remember. You have to tell
It was the movement you just
right,
did.
just like but faster. Right.
So you got the
If you asked 100 people on the street, like, remember Killer Croc was in Suicide Squad? They would be like, you don't know. What are you talking
The
about?
movie won an Oscar for the Killer Croc makeup. You could argue
It was
'cause
pretty good makeup.
it was incredible makeup,
Yeah.
but people were like, they gave it a fucking Oscar for the Joker tattoos because everyone forgets that
remembers
Killer
Killer
Croc
Croc.
is in it.
He doesn't do anything. That's why they don't remember.
Excuse me, David, he does this. And by the way, for the listener, we're all doing perfect impressions of the way Killer Croc swims. Get David.
I'm ordering myself some lunch, by the way.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Because I'm realizing I'm doing another podcast after this, so I have to.
David, can you do the Killer Croc thing with your phone in your hand, like 28 years later style?
Oh, yeah. Can we get like a human rig on this?
Sorry.
Okay, that was good.
They make it back to the mainland, but they have like a pretty scary close call with what we were introduced to as an alpha.
Right. So, we're learning things. We're
We've got-
learning that
we've
the
got the real-
wilderness has
yes.
come.
We've got really skinny, fast ones. We've got alphas, which are the ones with the big dicks.
The roided up ones
The
that you can't take them down with a
These
single
guys got
arrow.
some real hose on them.
We also something is introduced where we see a man is being like hung from like the ceiling.
Letters are carved into his
Let's
chest.
say Jimmy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So though you don't see the J. I think they kind of do a good job
They do.
teasing
Looks
out
like
what
Emmy.
that is. It does.
And then his head is in a bag that has pulled up
An
blood in it.
anti-bitey bag. I
Right.
interpreted
They
that as.
think, why was this human tortured and left for dead? And then they
It's like,
realize
rah, rah,
that it
rah.
has turned.
But I mean, I really liked throughout all of this that Aaron Taylor Johnson is not that careful, because I think partly he's like, well, he's going to have to figure it out. And also partly it's just his character. Because like in that scene, you know, there's a way for you to be watching that scene where you're like, oh, this sucks. Like they're taking too long so that we get a jump scare,
But
right?
but
But you're like, no, that's how
No.
you behave. Where he'd be like, yeah, don't get too close to it where I'm like, I would be a million miles away from
But
this.
that's where
And
I'm
the
saying they're
entire time,
bringing
the
in
kid
a
is-
little bit of the ATJ
The
cop.
kid is,
Yeah,
the kid is constantly walking behind him. And I'm like, this is terrible parenting.
You would want to keep an eye on him.
It
Like-
feels like the parent forcing the kid to go on a hunting trip when
Yeah.
he's far too young.
100%.
They're not
That's
A
what it
little
into it.
too young.
Yeah.
It's like he's 2 years too young.
Yeah.
He can't go on the roller coaster yet, but the dad's like, let's sneak him on the roller coaster.
Yeah,
or
and the
whatever.
kid
You know,
is
like,
he's
yeah.
not that kind of kid. He's really
No.
sensitive.
He is. I mean, look, unsurprisingly, a character detail I love is when he's packing to go on the trip. He looks at the action figure on the mantelpiece.
And he's like,
He's like walking out the door. He goes back, he grabs it, and then he puts it down.
You related to that.
I did. Every morning. If you wonder why I'm late for podcast recordings, it's because I'm looking at the action figure on the mantle and I go, do I bring it?
Which one did you bring today?
Good.
Well, I have my McReady from the thing here, courtesy of Reese.
But like, right? I mean, we all agree. Like, the kid is a really good kid performance.
It's
And like, and if
really-
you had told me going in, like, hey, yeah, the main character's a kid,
he is
I would have been
the
like,
movie.
look, Boyle is good at that. I'm not automatically freaked out, but I never love to hear that a 12-year-old is going to be the big thing in a genre.
No,
movie.
but 28 years. It is the 2 generations later thing. It is that like this kid is like 2 degrees removed from a world before this, which is smart. You're like, that should be the center of the film. It does make sense, but it is obviously a risky proposition unless you find the right kid, which they fucking did. And Bull directs him to perfection. They narrowly make it back the
Well,
other side of the gate, and then
wait,
you're sort of like,
wait, no.
what is the movie now?
No,
but
we have a
while they're there,
There's
they
yeah,
a
a
clock.
couple more
Right,
things.
right.
So they clock that there is a fire in the distance. Looks like signs of human life.
And Aaron Taylor Johnson is like, oh, it must be a fire. And he's like, is it a village? He's like, no, it's not a village. And he's like, what is it? He's like, oh, I don't know. And I don't want to talk about it. And don't ask.
Covering a
me
little too
again.
fast. It's coming
Yeah.
out of a pillar,
Yes.
let's say.
So there's that. There's also the first time I think we see infrared footage,
So that
which
shit
is
rocks.
so
And I also want
fucking
to.
scary and cool.
And also when they're marching over the causeway to begin their journey is when he cuts in the recitation of the Kipling poem, which was this like 1915 radio broadcast, right? Is what that is. And he's cutting in like all this footage of like Britain going to war, medieval, World War I, right? You know, like, and I
Right,
was
we're
just
seeing like 40s movies depictions of knights.
And it reminded me a lot of the opening ceremony where he cuts to like the Olympic opening ceremony where he cuts to the each territory or whatever scoring a rugby goal or a soccer goal. That like there's use of like again like tone poems, montage, using archival footage. I was like, oh, this is fucking cool.
But this
I was
is
just
where,
rocking.
Yeah.
Well, yes, but because I was remembering our Olympics episode
Yeah.
where you're just sort of like slamming your fist on the table and going like, this is so British. He gets it, right? And he's just saying like, this is the DNA, right? He's not like making a statement on the nation in the same way as he's talking about the lineage of the people in a way. We reveal this on social media, but we record an episode recently with Mark Maron, A Decade of Dreams Come True, that will come out in later months.
We locked.
We locked the motherfucking gates. But I told Maron, because of course he does not know the backstory, that David grew up in England. And I believe Maron's immediate response was, it must be nice to grow up in a place with old stuff.
That guy.
And he was like you got walls there that are like older than 300 years.
We talked about castles for a minute. That's true. I forgot
But that's
about
like a thing this movie is getting at, is like, this is a place that has history, and these like it repeats itself and it echoes and it rhymes.
It's what to me is charming about America, but a lot of Europeans will make fun of, right? Where America's like, look at this old house. It's from the 19th century. And everyone in Europe is like, all of us just live in houses from then.
I mean,
like,
this
what?
This is why Margaret is one of the best movies ever made about America, because it's the one movie that identifies like, we are fucking teenagers who think we're grown ups.
Right.
That's what that movie's about for me. Someday we will cover it. Anyway, they make it back and you're sort of like, what is the movie now? Where is this going? Right? Which I love. I love that feeling of, I truly don't know.
I mean, I know zombies will
Sure.
be involved, I guess.
Yeah.
But there's anywhere this could go, right? Like this, it could go in any direction. Yeah.
I also just want to shout out the sequence where they are running across the causeway back to Holy Island, where it's like the Northern Lights.
How is he fucking shooting this?
I have no idea.
I mean, I know there's like CGI involved.
It looks,
It's not
but
like,
it looks,
you know, you
it's
just-
so insane, and it's so striking. It took my breath away, and you also just have a just giant penis.
That's true.
Just
flapping in the
flapping.
moonlight.
He's got a fucking piece on
Well,
him.
it's a prosthetic, I believe. I mean, it was
Do
very
we know?
rubbery. No, I don't know, but the physics and the sort of the sheen, to use like.
I feel like we had a similar reaction to Yahya Abdul-Mateen's giant blue hanger in Watchmen,
right.
where you and I are texting back and forth,
Yeah,
and I'm like,
what's going on?
is he just fucking stacked the high heavens? And you were like, it's gotta be fake. But because the actors are already wearing makeup over their body,
right? It's sort of
it's
got
hard to know where the reality is.
Do they give Billy Crudup a big dick in the Watchmen
Average.
movie?
I would say it was a perfectly
I'm
nice,
looking-
flaccid
I'm looking it
blue
up.
penis.
But fucking HBO Watchmen, he's got an absolute Pringles can on him.
I'm just leaving you to this.
Anyway, they narrowly escape the dick. They make it back.
There's
And-
a party.
And this is the thing.
Yes.
In the same time where he's like doing this sort of tone poem, like cutting in historical footage, cutting in movies, reenacting different eras of Britain, the footage of them out on the hunt, right? He's also giving you these images that are clearly new stuff from the movie, but you don't know what they are. And you're seeing people wearing masks. You feel like, is this some weird cult thing?
Initially,
is this
that
some
was my
tribal thing?
thought,
Where is this
right.
going? And then finally, you cut into that space proper, and you're like, this has been a preview of what's on the other side for him after his first hunt, which is basically, you're a man now. You get to fucking engage with pop culture, right? And it's like some weird version of like a bar mitzvah combined with like, now you get to like chug pints and like be yelled at by people. That this is how they've maintained their like football hooliganism, is by rebuilding it around the idea of hunting zombies.
And it just it breaks my heart that, that Aaron Taylor Johnson's like, my son, he, killed so many. He was
clearly
incredible.
so proud of him. He's crying
so,
as he's
so violent. He like smashed those guys. He ripped them to shreds. He's so brave. And the kid is like very traumatized.
Right. He's not into it. He thinks he did a bad job. He doesn't like that he was scared. But he also is correctly like, that was very fucked up. I didn't enjoy any of
the
that.
kid basically like maybe nailed 2, and there were 8 where his dad had to step
But,
in,
like-
and he's fixated on the ones that he couldn't.
I'm
step
with I'm sympathetic to Aaron Taylor Johnson because it's like, yeah, we live on a tiny island, like a little village town of however, what do you think? It's like 100 people or something, like whatever. That's where I'm alive, like it's the only thing that we get to do.
He gets a rush,
right?
Yeah.
They don't even have the Wordle.
They don't even have the Wordle.
They don't even have old ones.
Nary a Cinematrix to be
Wordle
seen.
didn't exist in
It was never
2002.
created in this universe.
It's so frightening to me to think about a world
Yeah.
without Wordle.
Yeah.
I'm joking.
Do you think they still have Doody.com though?
Please tell me what that is.
DODDY, and every day there was a new Flash animation about poop?
Is it still going?
I
I'm
think
gonna
so.
guess that one might have died on the vine.
I did in the last 5 years go like, I should check up on Doody.com. And I can't remember if I had to use Internet Archive to find it, but they're definitely not posting new content. What I was going to say is I like that you're getting this like preview imagery of the fucking pub party afterwards. That is more terrifying to this kid to be in the center of than being on the mainland with the zombies, right? He is so overwhelmed. They're making him drink beer. He's vomiting immediately.
I don't think it's more terrifying. I think they're equating.
They're
the
similar,
two.
but it's so
But, yeah.
overstimulating.
Yes, it is. And the major thing that happens
He
at
steps
this
outside
party,
to puke.
and he witnesses his father go down on the local hua in an alleyway.
She's just a nice lady.
She's a nice lady.
She's not the local hua.
Yeah.
I mean, she could be.
Fucking Pantaleano has entered the chat.
Thank you. That was exactly what I was going.
But a thing that absolutely like destroys his idea of his father. I think
it definitely
combined
it's
with him
dinging
feeling
up the dad a little
so
bit.
freaked out by what he just experienced and being
Again,
like,
I'm sympathetic to
Absolutely.
ATJ. Jodie Comer is
Well,
not
that's the thing.
really with him anymore. Like,
No, she and
yeah, she doesn't
but
really exist.
Also, the kid doesn't have all of the context.
Well, I
that
also think
the
the
adults
kid,
have.
to bring back the manosphere thing, he's more of a DJ Khaled type where he's like, kings don't do that.
Correct.
like I think that's what he's thinking.
And even though he's still
There's
finding
a cut scene where
Yeah.
he actually says that.
he's still finding a sense of self, but he knows without a doubt he self-identifies as a king. And kings don't do that.
But okay, so
You did say, by the way, walking out, you went, what a year for cunnilingus. You did say pussy eating in mainstream studio horror film. And I said, in mainstream studio Jack O'Connell horror.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
right. JOC and sits in his rider.
Do you think that's his...
If I'm in a movie, someone has to eat
I
a
was
pussy.
going to
Doesn't
say,
have to be
I don't
me.
have to do it. In either case, he's doing it. But do you think that's his first script note when he gets sent
That's why.
something?
It's why he never made the MCU. He kept being like, someone's gonna get eaten out, and they were like, "What?"
Yeah, they offered him every Eternal.
Kingo, come on! Fuck it. I wish I could name another Eternal.
Kingo, Gilgamesh,
Oh, there you go.
Druid,
Oh boy.
Icarus.
Mm,
Can I name them all? Sprite,
sure.
Fastos.
Yep. That's Brian Tyree Henry.
I'm getting hung up on Gemma Chan.
Yep. She's the only one I know because I actually she's a well-known comic character. Weller known.
Well, she's not Cersei, right? Angelina
She's Cersei.
Jolie is okay.
No, Gemma Chan is Cersei.
Angelina Jolie is
Laura Croft, Tomb Raider.
oh, one of them
So
is
true.
Ajax.
Yeah, that's Salma Hayek is
Okay.
Ajax.
I'm 2 away. Remember how there were 10 Eternals?
There were a fair amount. They may be over
I'm
indexed on
counting. I
Eternals.
think it's 10. Angelina Jolie's character is Athena.
Is just Thena, but I think
right.
it's supposedly
Because the idea is that all of them
they
are
were
names that were
once
misinterpreted
gods.
as.
Right.
Okay, and then the only one I don't have is the fast one. Makari?
Lauren Ridloff's character, Makari. You did have
My
it.
brain sucks so much.
No, you just love Eternals.
I do love Eternals and I watch it every night.
I'm a little like embarrassed for you.
I'm embarrassed for me.
Icarus is the one that really amuses me.
Who was the Irish guy?
He was
Kyogen.
Druig.
Druid. Who
Druig.
you think is a
Druig.
bad boy, but he's actually a lover.
Yeah, right. He probably is the one the most likely.
Let's
yeah,
say.
let's be honest.
He might be taking a knee, if you know what I'm saying. I do like that. I do like that she's standing and Aaron Taylor Johnson takes a knee like a gentleman.
Yeah. Okay. Wait.
He
so
bows before his queen.
I just have like a little follow up thing because I just listened to the like everyone else who is listening to this podcast. I just listened to the Loser episode. You guys briefly bring up Saving Silverman. I haven't seen it.
I have gotten 5 texts in the week since the episode came out.
Did I say it
all
was bad?
caps saying Saving Silverman is good and you are right.
So you're it's good, and I was like, isn't it bad?
I said
I can't remember the
Saving
interaction.
Silverman is good, and I believe you said, "Oh, fuck off! It is not." You refused to even entertain.
I mean, I remember
the
that
idea.
being like a 1-star Empire magazine review, but that's not. It's been a little while since I saw Silverman.
I put it on last
or
night.
saved him.
Yeah, I will admit I've been watching it in chunks every night when I'm trying to fall asleep. I have not made it to the end yet, even though it is only 90
You're
minutes
watching
long.
it at Instagram.
There is like a
Reels.
god tier bit in the beginning where Jack Black is like trying to prove that he's good at training employees of Subway on how to make sandwiches, which is so fucking simple, but
The guy puts the meat on the outside of the bread.
That movie's a year after High Fidelity. I do
Correct.
remember at the time where I was just like, I'm interested in Jack Black, like Jack Black's being peppered into anything. I want to know what it is.
My take on that movie is that movie is chaos. Like, what's funny about it is like
yeah.
it is like one of the most deeply
Well,
misogynistic studio
it is
films
super-
ever
That's what I
made.
remember, right?
Well,
Bad
right.
vibes.
So
right.
I just want to go on the record as saying like Amanda Peet, I get where she's coming from. I think it's amazing that the only sexual activity she will have with her boy toy
David,
is
take a guess.
he just goes down on her.
She
That's
asked
the
Jason Biggs to
entirety
take a knee.
of
She doesn't ask. She tells
She
Jason
tells.
Biggs to take a knee.
yeah.
And then when he says, you know, there are things that one can do in return, she hands him porno mags.
Out of her bedside table,
This is what
porno
I'm saying.
mags,
This movie
lotion,
is
and a
so
box of
insane.
Kleenex and says, "Have fun."
You're not making it sound good. You're
Marie,
making it sound.
Marie, agree with me.
bad.
It's got some juice.
It's got some juice.
But is
I
it
was
like-
laughing.
like weird garbage juice.
Yeah,
No.
it's weird garbage juice. Yeah.
But garbage juice, you're like, this must have started with a base of real juice.
Also,
I know other things have gotten mixed in.
all
at
of
this
the
point.
all of the Neil Diamond stuff is funny to
Neil
me.
Diamond's really good. in it.
And
Zahn's
then
really good. In it.
I basically stopped watching it because my husband was like, "Actually,
Yeah,
can
okay.
we pause?"
So neither of us have made it to
No,
the
we
end.
haven't. No, they just kidnapped her.
Oh, okay.
where I stopped. But like we stopped watching the movie because
Have you seen this piece of shit?
No.
Okay.
my husband
That's
was
actually
like,
damning that Ben hasn't.
Yeah, right. Even Comedy Central was like, "Ew."
but no, we had to watch the Neil Diamond Storytellers from SNL.
That's one of the greatest.
Which is one of the greatest.
That is, I haven't seen that in a long time.
It's so good.
It is. I like that we're bringing up deeper SNL cuts of like, because I
Yeah.
got some Rocket Dog love, and then
Houston, we have a dog.
the Seth Meyers Lonely Island podcast talked about it.
I know,
almost the
right
same week
after.
because they were discussing that episode.
Synchronicity. I've been jamming on some sort of like forgotten side Ferrell sketches, but I remember in a pre-YouTube era where I would go to snltranscripts.jt, and the Neil Diamond Storyteller sketch was one that I would read and laugh out loud because I was like, well, there's no way to rewatch this
It's on
Until the
Daily Motion.
now.
Now it
But I'm
is,
saying
yeah.
like 2004, you were like, I just have to read it.
What is .jt?
I don't know, but it was what that fucking website had.
I just love like the SNL sketches that are like not on YouTube. The ones that like
Well, they're mostly ones that have music. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. That because Rocket Dog, Its Life is a Highway is the problem, I think.
Right. I think
Yes.
I found it
Really?
again on
Yeah.
Daily Motion or somewhere, but yeah.
interesting.
I think there's just some conversation that happens of like, do we clear Life is a Highway? And they're like, what? That's like a 12:55 sketch.
I
No.
guess-
There's a
I guess
Paul
that
Rudd
makes-
Vilkeman sketch that aired once and has never been legally reposted.
I guess that makes sense, but in my head, it's like, okay, the ones that are like deemed too spicy for YouTube, like we want to scrub them from the
That's
internet.
part of it, but
Maybe
I
a little
I
of
do
that.
think the music is more of it. I mean, they talk about on the fucking Lonely Island podcast that when
I
they
should
started
really
doing the
listen to
digital
that.
shorts and they would sample songs, they were like, yeah, because you make a license that this just airs one time on late night and it costs fucking $5.
guess-
And the second they started putting them up on YouTube,
Right.
they
People
got
were like-
sued.
I mean, my guess is it's also sometimes someone like Tom Cochran, who of course is the guy who's saying Life is a Highway, might be like, yeah, Life is a Highway is my whole like income stream. I'm asking for the maximum quote, right? Like some guys might just be like, yeah, whatever, fuck, you can have it. Or
Also,
can-
you have to remember, Rocket Dog is post Cars. So Cars has been like funneling money into his pockets. And he's like, you don't get this for free anymore. I know my value.
Life is a highway. You're gonna have to clue this man. I want to ride it all night. That was
long.
Rascal Flats, right?
Correct.
In Cars, yeah.
You're going my way, and then I don't know the next lyric.
It might honestly be, I want to ride it. In my mind, it's, I want to ride it again.
Okay, so 28 years later.
His sort of belief in his father is immediately broken, right? In this storm of complicated
again,
emotions.
Here's something I appreciate. We get moving pretty quickly. Again, I can't, no offense to the town, which is an interesting environment, but every time we were in the town, I kind of had this fear of like, are we about to do 20 minutes of sort of
Where are we
town
going?
politics?
He runs home. He has this long conversation with who we assume is the
The
grandfather.
grandpa, which is a lovely scene.
He asks him about the pillar in the fire that he
Yeah,
saw,
he's
and
like-
he's like, "Oh, your dad didn't want to tell you," and says that guy used to be a GP. And the movie now starts tilting at the character that is basically the Colonel Kurtz of this movie.
Or
And-
at least you'll think, though, he'll be Kurtz.
They're framing
right.
him that way.
Yeah.
And there's
Um,
certainly parallels.
Right, because ATJ, what the fuck's the character's name? I keep calling my Jamie says like, right, I had one disturbing encounter with that person a long time ago where I just saw him lining up bodies and then he like waved
And he was
to
so
me.
cheery about it, like nothing
And
was
I was
wrong.
like, that's a psychopath.
Right.
Now,
You see it.
You see it from
You
a
see it, and
it's
distance. His
really
face is covered. You don't
striking.
see the guy, but we know there's a third name above
I
the
know,
title on the
right.
poster.
I know who's coming.
And I think Ben doesn't know.
No.
You had a real kind of like positive jump scare when the actor shows up on screen. But I'm like, oh, fuck. They're saving Ralph Fiennes.
Yeah, David
Is one of the
goes,
first things you said walking out of the theater.
third act Rafe.
Third act Rafe.
Third act Rafe is huge. In Bruges, Hurt Locker,
Harry Potter, Goblet of Fire.
Is there another one?
I was saying that the reader's kind of a third act Rafe, although most people don't make it to the third act
Or
of the reader.
remember that movie if they saw it
Yes.
yesterday?
Yeah. There has to be another one though.
I don't know.
It's a classy move. It's a gentleman's move and it's a genius move.
Especially because he's smeared.
Yes. He's really
He is covered in iodine. But I mean, okay, so
We don't know that at first. We think it's like blood or
Right.
something. Right.
I think I guess I was I sort of, because they were setting him up so malevolently, I did sort of think like, okay, I don't think he's gonna be as like the psycho that he's being portrayed as by Aaron Taylor Johnson, because that feels too easy, right? So then I was trying to puzzle out, like, is it going to be he was doing something with the bodies to ward off the zombies or whatever?
Well, but we're
getting
sitting
close.
there, and we're all like, they wouldn't do something that easy, but what's it gonna be? And when Rafe appears on screen, the first 6 line readings, I would say the first 10 minutes he's on screen, the audience laughed at everything he did, because he is somehow doing something that is so unexpected, and yet you still can't pin it down. You're like, this is not who I thought this guy would be, and yet I still can't figure this guy out. And it doesn't feel like he's just doing weird line readings.
No, it's a gentleness that's really surprising.
Yeah. It's like macabre but sentimental.
I was like, he's doing another actor. Who is he doing? And it took me a moment, and then I was like, he's doing Bill Nighy.
Sure, okay.
Not like ripping him off, but it felt like he's capturing that odd energy to Bill Nighy, where you're like, is this guy like emotionally disconnected or more connected? He's just on his own wavelength.
He's another take on, he's gone not crazy, but he doesn't interact with people anymore.
Yeah.
And like, he's not malevolent, but he is odd. He's still polite.
Yeah, well, that's the Nighy part of it, is he sort of like makes jokes to entertain himself.
What Bill Nighy performance are you thinking of?
I think that's Bill Nighy's like default kind of like demeanor.
I don't agree with you.
Okay,
I'm sorry. I love Bill Nighy. I just think he usually plays really mordant guys.
Are we talking about the science guy?
We're not talking about the science guy.
I was talking about the science guy.
And I love Bill Nighy. I have no problem with Bill Nighy. I don't know him very well.
No problem with him. Give him some credit. Put some flowers on that name.
Do I have to?
Yeah, I think so.
I think it's a little desperate that he's like trying to appeal to the TikTok generation.
Well, I haven't been clocking this.
Bill Nighy. Anyway,
Act 2 of this movie is
69.
that he has this information. Hell yeah, brother.
Maybe Bill Nighy's taking a knee.
I think so. And for that, we salute.
Maybe this podcast maybe this is it.
This is the last episode.
Yeah, maybe we got to wrap it up. Wow, we recorded with all those celebs for the code.
I know, and we'll just never release them.
Fuck it.
You got like 5 A-listers. We're just going to keep them like fucking Day the Clown cried. In a vault.
We just be like, when people ask us why, and I'm like, I don't know. We started talking about Bill Nighy eating pussy. Like, it just kind of felt like it was done.
Like maybe. We've run our course. His grandfather explains that this guy was a GP, and he goes, I think all of this experience like brings him closer to his mother, and this feeling of a need to protect her, and a feeling that his father is not, that his father seemingly has kind of moved on, and he doesn't want his mother to be seen as like a finished cause. And so he convinces his mother to go onto the mainland with him. There's a couple really good scenes. I mean,
she's kind of, I feel like she's almost in a fugue at this point. Or like she's in the past.
She doesn't understand what is happening until
like minute to minute.
Yes.
Like he gets her, I feel like, out of there because she's just kind of like, yeah, sure. Where are we going?
She regains a cogency.
Right. She'll be like, are we outside?
Deep on the other side.
Right. And he's like, yeah.
Yeah.
Right.
But he does this whole kind of trick to convince the people at the watchtower that there's a fire they need to put out to get him off the guard. He has this really good scene where he kind of like holds Aaron Taylor Johnson at knife point because he's so angry at his father.
Do you guys like Comer in this movie? What do you guys think of Jodie Comer?
Here's the thing. I think she is a phenomenal actress.
Yeah, in your favorite movie, Free Guy. But apart from that,
I feel like you sometimes feel like she goes a little ham sandwich.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I think she is someone who knows how to make a great ham sandwich. I think they're handing her a pretty extreme part. And like some friends of mine who saw that I logged this on Letterboxd were like, how's Comer? I know you're holding Comer stock the way I am. And I'm like, it's not her best performance, but it's like, it's a really tricky part. And I do think she does it well. I think she especially nails the last couple of scenes.
She's phenomenal.
I think she's fantastic in this
film.
movie.
But I feel like, Marie,
I was getting
you and I loved Bike Riders, and you walked out of the theater and were like, fuck that, fuck the voice she's doing, fuck the whole thing.
That's certainly how I felt.
This is high school play.
That's how I felt.
I think when we were still in the dark as to what her actual illness was, I was not loving her performance because I thought it was a mental issue. And to me, it was a little tropey.
Right. There's the
I agree
worry
with
of like, right, are you doing a little too, cheesy?
Yes. I didn't think it was bad, but I thought it was a little too broad. The more her kind of consciousness comes back, the better she gets.
Yes.
Did any of you see Prima Facie?
No, I wanted to.
Fuck that.
It is just like one of the most impressive things I've ever seen an actor do.
Wait, why
on a
did you say
technical
fuck
level.
that?
I hate those one-person shows on Broadway. And I think it's like, it's impressive. Like, it's like a cool trick.
I mean, I'm like similarly like, I don't really want to see Dorian Gray, but that I was like, it was one of the most technically astounding things I have ever seen.
I bought all of my Jodie Comer, and I did watch the first season of Killing Eve.
I never watched
which
Killing
I
Eve.
thut was really fun.
I did what everyone did. I thought the first season was good. I watched like one episode of the second season.
Yeah, and then
I
I'm
was
like, I'm out. Yeah.
Goodbye.
David's hitting the button.
But
Eject.
big red button.
I bought all of my Jodie Comer stock after The Last Duel, which I thought was
she's unbelievable.
Great in that movie.
Extraordinary.
I mean,
Yes.
everyone's in that.
You're right.
Everyone
It was
amazing
that
in
and Free Guy in the same year where I was like, Free Guy is rancid dog shit, and I think she's kind of good in this.
Like I said, it's your favorite movie.
And it's my favorite movie. And then Last Duel, I think she is unbelievable.
Unbelievable.
Right.
Yeah.
Did I give her Best Actress that year? I certainly nominated
Everyone's
her.
great in that movie.
She should have been nominated for an Oscar.
Maybe should have won the Oscar. Yeah.
The people
Don't ask me.
I don't know
why.
why-
Run the Oscars.
people need
Yet.
to not sleep on that movie.
But you're right. No, because I hadn't watched Killing
People
Eve,
need to not sleep on that movie.
People need to wake the
people
fuck
need
up.
to need to wake up.
It's time to open your third eye.
You're right that was my exact arc, which was I saw Free Guy without having seen Killing Eve and was like, she's kind of interesting. Then I saw Last Duel and I was like, she's fucking unbelievable. Is this like actress of her generation? It is the
Which
reason.
I think some people think like that's kind of what she is.
It is the reason I went
You
to see Prima
nominated
Facie.
her and you gave it to Rebecca Hall.
Oh, right. Okay. Yeah.
Which a performance I know you love.
Yeah, I adore. But I think it's why I saw Prima Facie, even though I do think I'm kind of allergic to that type of show, because I was just like, I got to see her in person.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
I'm sure she was good.
She was incredible.
Right.
But yes, no, it's a tough performance.
I think she's really good in the movie.
I think she,
and I think, like you said, those final scenes, the big emotional scenes.
it's why
But
you
she
hire
really
her.
and she underplays them
Right, exactly.
so beautifully.
I will say there is a single look she gives in this movie. It is a 1 second reaction shot where I'm like, that's worth $20 million. Where I'm just like, we'll get to it. Remind me of this. It's in the final moment. But the movie then becomes Act 2 is this sort of almost like Wizard of Oz quest to make it to
the doctor. Yeah,
right.
yeah.
To see this mystery man.
And you're like, right, they can't just get to the doctor. So they do have to, and I think the sidetracks are good and are cool.
We meet a character who we haven't mentioned yet.
Eric,
the
Yes, played
a
by
Swedish
Edvin Riding.
a Swedish soldier. So we're also introduced to the fact that like they retcon the end of 28 weeks later, like they have successfully.
They don't even fully retcon it, but they're like, it was driven back.
Yeah.
So whatever you saw there was not a problem.
Yeah,
because
France
they
is
figured
fine.
it out. Yes.
So
France so good at repelling
yes.
invasion.
So, but
it rained and all the zombies went back to the UK.
but there's like an EU. Yeah.
Or Macron just greeted them. People like, don't love your.
Eric was getting big laughs in the theater.
Oh, Eric.
He's
so
fun.
They introduce a really fun element through this Swedish soldier who is stranded after his quarantine boat.
Right, and we see
Patrol
them
boat
getting
yes.
annihilated by the zombies, which is
Right.
cool.
And he's
of
the one
course,
survivor.
there's the whole thing with the alphas where they like pull your head off. and
Yeah.
they have the spinal
The
column.
teaser
That was
poster.
so
yeah, they go full like fucking predator mode.
Yeah.
Yeah, Predator, Borg Queen, whatever.
Yeah.
They like the full spine.
And then they use the spine as a fucking weapon.
yeah, I mean they'll do that.
as a weapon, but also as a piece of art.
I'm realizing this movie really feels like Ben was in the punch-up room.
100%.
There were like 6 ideas in this movie that like, it doesn't feel like Ben wrote it from beginning to end, but it does feel like they said like, do you have any ideas? And he threw them 5 and they used all of them.
If he's ripping out their heads with their spines on it, let him use it.
Yes. But also make it an art piece.
Yeah. But with the Swedish guy, they introduced this element of, oh yes, the rest of the world is exactly as it is now.
Yes, and basically they're just like, yeah, we just don't go there.
He
and
has
Eric
a
knows
smartphone.
he does have an iPhone. Eric knows.
It's my favorite. I'm sorry. It's my favorite joke in the movie. When
That he has
shows
the
him
insane girlfriend.
the picture of his girlfriend,
Right.
and he goes, "What's wrong with her face?" And you're like, "Oh, right. Part of UK culture ending in 2002 is that they never had the modern horrors of
Love Island face.
yes."
Yeah.
Or it had only begun. The sickness had not spread.
I
or
feel
evolved.
like I am going insane every time Instagram shows me a person who has that face. I feel like, Ben, you and I have complained about this, that now suddenly, increasingly, everyone has the same face.
Yeah.
And the face freaks me out. I don't like the face. And it's weird that everyone's sort of like starting to look identical in this pod person way. And this movie just has the best in for a joke about that I have ever seen.
I'm trying to remember. There were like 3 things that the Swedish guy referenced that the kid didn't understand because he was talking about radio. Like he referenced radio. Was that about the phone? Like literally the phone itself. He's like, oh yeah, it's like a radio. Because the kid's like, what is the kid's reaction to seeing a smartphone for the first time was amazing.
But also seeing the picture of the ex-fiance,
Yeah.
he goes, "That's what happens to my friend when he eats shellfish."
Oh, it was when he was describing his friend's an Amazon delivery driver.
Oh, yeah.
And he was like, I thought that was shitty. So I signed up to join the Navy. And that's how I ended up here in this shitty situation.
And the kid's just
The
like,
kid's
I have no idea what any of
What
this
do you mean when you order stuff online? I
Right.
don't know what that is.
But also, this guy's like, why the fuck did you bring your mom here? Why does your mom seemingly think that you're her husband?
Well,
You know,
actually,
her dad.
her dad.
Or dad, right.
But I think it's interesting that Eric is like, I am doomed. I'm not allowed to go back home. Like the minute you set foot on this place, that's it. Like you are considered contaminated and like there's no, escape.
Right. And he's just like, you're a child. Your mother does not have her wherewithal. Why would you bring her here? Like, what the fuck is happening? He's angry that he saved them because he's like, you guys are doomed. Why did I bother saving you?
I
It's a
wasted
good-
bullets.
It would be too easy to make him an out and out villain.
And we've already
Or,
kind
like,
of done
a nice
that
guy.
with the fucking
Yeah, the Eccleston and all
Yeah,
those guys,
right.
100%. And but he's also not particularly heroic or nice. Spends the whole time being like, Jesus, like, why am I even hanging out with you guys? But he's also he's like, nothing else for me to do. Right? Like, what am I going to do? Just walk into
It's
the
nice,
woods?
and where it lands in the movie, it sort of settles you a little bit, takes the tension away for a little while.
It was nice to have that because because of the way that this movie is set up, we don't have the I love the moment in the grocery store in
Yes,
28
yes.
Days Later where they're
Right.
playing the Granddaddy song and there's like a moment of fun and joy. And the closest we get to that in this film is when they're having a picnic and they're eating apples and they're talking about smartphones. And it is like this nice little
And it's like
it's like a
punctures
reset.
the membrane, right? It's like bringing it back to our mentality for a moment by bringing in an outsider.
This is when, of course, the pregnant,
Yes.
which we've already
You've
spotted her,
and
the
I
pregnant
wasn't
infected.
sure if it was going to be followed up on, but I was like, this is another interesting idea. It's like 28 years later, they would, of course, just basically settle into being their own species. They would start like sexually reproducing. It's the I Am Legend thing, right? Like not I Am Legend the movie, I Am Legend the original story, the element that every movie has failed to execute, which is like this character realizing like, am I the endangered species? And it's not about me needing to eradicate them to save humanity. They've become something else now,
they've evolved.
and I'm disturbing that.
I want to talk about something that is like Marie's Griffin morbid pandemic corner, but like not, I mean, it's not specifically that, but I am a married 36-year-old woman who wants to have a child. And that is something that I am like actively pursuing. But I am constantly like wavering on the ethical implications
Marie, you and
of
I have this
bringing
conversation.
a new life
We've had it before. Yep.
into a world that feels like it's on the precipice of ending. And to see this movie kind of make the argument for new life will go on in the worst
we
of
exist to
circumstances.
live.
We exist to live as long as
Also, the world's been ending.
the world's
for a
been
long
ending
time.
forever. And it was so, the baby is born. There's this beautiful moment.
It's another scene that Jodie Comer destroys.
Yes. So
We've seen her sort of like weirdly, the further she gets away from home, the more she's out in the world, she starts to, probably because she's no longer in a bubble.
Right. It's sort of, she's coming
There's new
back to life a little bit.
She's going in and out, and they start asking her questions about her, her comprehension, whatever. But they end up in this like trailer where the pregnant zombie is and is clearly on the precipice of giving birth. And rather than run in terror,
no, it's in a train. It's in a,
you're right.
Sorry. Which is a very cool set, that overgrown train.
Jodie Comer walks over to her and grabs her hands and sort of like in this silent,
helps her through labor.
yes, in this sort of through eye contact, gives the like, I get it, I know.
Offers her hands, too.
Right. Helps her give like the pressure to push back against, right? To like exert her effort.
I thought the baby was going to be born like a little demon, Rosemary's Baby rape.
Yeah, I mean, like Eric is having a rational reaction
What
of
the
like,
fuck are you doing?
shoot, destroy,
He's got a
it's a
machine
zombie
gun.
baby.
Right.
Yes. But they have this kind of elemental, like, no, like, it's okay. We can't,
The placenta is strong.
Well,
yes,
and the movie
Ralph Fiennes does
has
shout
set
out
up
the placenta.
when they, at the checkpoint of the barrier to the mainland, it's like, check the eyes, make sure the eyes are clean, right, before you let them in. There's this great tension built into the delivery of the baby, which is the baby comes out, it's covered in blood, and its eyes are closed. So at first you're sort of like, I don't know if the baby's fine, right? And even if the baby is infected,
How do they show? I was like, are they going to show them killing a baby?
truly,
That's the thing. I was immediately like, no, like you kind of always know when a property is going to make the like very, very daring
the assault
decision
on
of
precinct
killing a
13.
baby.
Yes.
No, even a kid is
That's not a baby, but you know what I'm saying. When a
I-
movie is
yes.
ramping up we're about to do something really
right, very
incendiary.
transgressive, and you're
Yes.
like, yeah, no, this is not, because that would just be not because it's like that's not allowed. It's just because it's like, yeah, you'll lose the audience. Like they'll just
But
be so bummed
Jodie
out.
Comer basically draws
And
the
it'll
line.
be kind of like, why'd you do that? You
She
know?
draws the line before she can tell
Yes.
that the baby isn't infected. There is the first, like, this is life. We can't kill it. It's an innocent. It's done nothing wrong. And it takes a little bit before they're just like, the baby's clean. Interesting. Eric does get fucking spined.
He gets spined.
He gets spined so
By the
fucking hard.
alpha.
In just a horror kill that I just always love.
Yeah.
Dragged away.
Yeah.
Blah,
Bullets firing down.
A piece of them returns. Like, I just always love that. I'm
Always.
sorry. It just always works for me.
So now they got a baby. Now it's a sick woman, a little boy, and a baby.
I know. It's
and
kind of like Quiet Place
they
where
are
you're like,
about-
there's a fucking baby?
You're also
you know?
just like, how are they going to get out of this scenario? Because they are trapped in this train with the alpha with the big dick.
Right. And it's pretty canonical. Like, Alpha cannot be killed by
Bow and arrows
Right,
or
right,
any,
right.
And then all of a sudden, the alpha gets tranquilized by our new friend, Ralph Fiennes.
Ralph Fiennes, who immediately shows up, winks to the
Dr.
camera,
Kelson.
and goes, "Hey, Griff,
Third
good,
act.
good luck not putting me on your best supporting actor blankies ballot."
Not to backtrack, but I just want to quickly, because it did feel important. There's the scene where they're hiding out in the church, sleeping during the night, and the boy falls asleep.
Right. They
And
wake
Yeah,
up.
the
They
mom
wake
like
up.
trashes one of the
Well,
zombies.
he wakes up and they see a zombie just lying there
Right.
dead. And he goes, "How did that happen?" And she goes, "I don't know." And then it flashes back to her waking up in the middle of the night and bashing his head against a fucking...
Like some kind of instinctual thing clicking for her, but she
Right.
doesn't remember doing it. I
And
just
versus
felt like
Aaron
there's
Taylor
something important
Johnson.
about that.
Well, see, but my question is it that she doesn't remember doing
Or
it?
does
Or
she
is
doesn't want to like ruin the kid by
Right.
exposing him?
Because
to
also
that.
our first introduction to her at the beginning of the movie is her in this sort of daze. She knocks over a glass of water. They go upstairs to try to calm her down, right? And she goes like, "Why aren't you in school?" And Aaron Taylor Johnson says like, "I told you, remember today's the day I'm taking him." And she flips out. He's a 12-year-old. He's a boy.
baby.
You can't
Yeah.
take away his childhood like this. They lie to her and they go do it without
I
her.
interpreted it as she was aware of what she was
I
doing.
think so,
She's
too.
just protecting.
I think it's a moment of cognitive clarity combined with like a mother's instincts that she in that moment makes the decision of like, I don't need to sully him with the notion of me having to do something that brutal. I'm trying to still protect him in a way.
Do you think, Bigger Splash, he's more of a second act entrance. I guess it's not really third act.
Yeah, he's
so good.
on fire in that. I certainly gave that a nomination as well.
He better have.
If not win,
Maybe.
I might have given him the win.
I don't know.
Look it up, Davey. Look it up.
I'll do my best.
So we meet Dr. Kelson. He's covered in iodine. He looks like he's covered in blood, but he's actually covered in iodine, which is a repellent.
Prophylactic.
This guy has basically just been spending decades doing like R&D, right?
Sure. I guess so, but it's not just that. He's also been doing art, land art. There's a scene earlier where they find the Angel of the North, which is this whole movie set in the Northumberland region. Where I went to school at Newcastle. Everyone's got a Geordie accent.
Biting through my tongue right now.
Relax. And the Angel of the North is this beautiful piece of public art that was built in like the 90s or the 2000s. Like it's not that old.
It was built in I believe the early 2000s. It was famously the most expensive valuation on Antiques Roadshow in the UK. Someone had the original maquette.
Sure. It was built in 1998. Sort of symbolizes the northern, sort of resurgence post in, the minor strikes and it's a beautiful thing. And I feel like that's what fucking Fiennes is doing. He's building this art that will last beyond him.
Yeah.
And
but it's also a memorial, right? Like, this is like his version of like it is, but it's like
it's for like the people, whoever they might be, right?
Sure.
Like who might one day come across these like cairns.
It's part of the tradition of like kind of all human civilizations, more or less, of leaving these monuments.
Yeah.
It's like an AIDS quilt.
Be like something
it's
happened.
Like, because it is about like each of these was a person.
Now, what is the medium? It's
Bones.
skull.
The medium is bone. Yeah.
The medium is
the
medium B
calcified.
bone.
So the whole time they're being introduced to Ralph Fiennes, they're carrying around the spine and head of Eric, our dearly departed Swedish friend.
Wow, Griff, you did not. Oh no, you nominated him in lead.
Yeah.
Interesting.
We fought about this. I think he's
put him as
undeniably the lead because then he runs the table on the movie. They're both leads. I would put them both in lead.
Nope.
Well, you're wrong.
I'm not wrong.
But Ralph Fiennes takes this.
Did I give him the winner? I just nominated him.
You gave him a nom, and you gave Tom Hanks the win for a little film called Sully.
Smart. I of course gave Ralph Fiennes my best of the decade win for Grand Budapest.
It's so good in that movie.
Marie, sorry, go on.
So they're carrying around Swedish guy's head and
they hold on to
spine.
it a little too long.
And Ralph Fiennes explains to Spike that what he's doing is he thinks it's important to sort of recognize that death is a part of this existence and recognize like it's kind of a beautiful tribute to these people to, de-skin their
He's built a whole system of how he fucking cleans them off.
and puts them in this beautiful
Well, he's had time to.
sculpture.
Yeah.
He's really
Hone it.
refined the process.
He gets Comer's head back out there fast.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it is like this weird balance of what he's doing is like he is friendly, he is sophisticated, he has clearly gone a little mad just in not communicating with other people, but not in a way that feels dangerous at all. Is just hard to sort of figure out how to connect to. And I think like Fiennes is quietly one of the best chemistry actors. Not even that he's a great listener, but he just knows so well how to really lock in with any scene partner and can adjust so beautifully to anyone and doing any kind of thing, like understanding what he needs to do to tell the story.
I think it's a beautiful, he's like an additional male role model for this really sensitive kid who's only like example of what you're supposed to do with these creatures is kill them. And there's just so much violence and machismo.
This is one of the only people in the movie, if not the only one, who is fully engaging with the reality of their world, is really thinking about what has happened, what is happening, And
he's so like sensitively attuned.
He's really
to it.
Sensitive.
And it's so nice.
He's phenomenal. The longer the movie
It's just
spent
so good.
setting him up, the more I was like, I don't have any doubt he's going to deliver, but I can't even imagine what he's going to do. And it was disarming. And as I said, the audience laughs for like the first 10 straight minutes he's on screen at our screening because they're just like, what is this guy?
And I think there's also the classic horror movie thing of like, I'm so relieved that the tone is shifted.
It's comfort.
Yes.
Yes. Even if it's odd.
I like the ending of 28 Days Later, the third act. Right. But a lot of people at the time definitely were like, it loses in the third act. I like the zombie movie stuff. I don't like the creepy soldier
The men is
stuff.
the worst of all.
Right. And like now you watch the movie and you're like, no, it was kind of on the money. Like,
that's
this
the juice. That was like,
Maybe created the manosphere.
But I do like that he doesn't do that again.
No,
this time.
third act is emotional.
It's emotional, and it's not man is, simply, cannot be trusted to.
They finally get a diagnosis for mom.
Well, he clocks like that the baby is pure, and he says the placenta line. Yes. And then the scene of him inspecting her is so good because he is not overplaying it, but you get this bit of he is so happy to be doing this again. Like it is so comfortable for him to go back into doctor mode, a thing he has had to abandon in terms of the actual part of interacting with other people and trying to help them.
With people who are alive.
Yes. Right. Yes. And he does the sort of very gentle, I'm going to have to feel under your armpits and under your breast. Is that okay? And you see her dealing with the intensity. He's asking the questions about, like, are the phases? Marie's like choking up just thinking about this. But it's really profound stuff. And then they're sitting by the fire. And he just says, like, obviously, I don't have the equipment to do a proper test. I can't say for certain. All of the evidence point towards cancer. I don't know if it was cancer of the body that spread to the brain or cancer of the brain that spread to the body, but that explains the hallucinations and all of this. And you're sort of like, well, what does the movie do now? And without wasting time, he starts basically transitioning into the bedside conversation for the boy. When it's the moment
I'm like tearing up.
It's the moment that's the $20 million reaction shot for me.
Right.
Is he says, I believe it's cancer. And it cuts to Jodie Comer shifting eyeline from Ralph Fiennes over to her son.
Yeah.
And she gives him a look like, well, it's a very gentle sort of like smile of like, well, that's not great. But like, we have an answer.
She's like in that she kind of knew.
She kind of knew. She kind of felt it.
All the her husband, they all kind of knew, and they just weren't telling the kid.
She's giving him this look of like, well, we have an answer now. Like she's sort of trying to make it a little bit lighter while acknowledging like, not great news. And she's like conveying like 40 lines of dialogue in like the tilt of a head of a raise of her eyebrows. And it speaks so much to her relationship to her son and why she's tried to protect him. And even in this moment, doesn't receive the news before she can even process what it means for herself. She feels the need to say something to him with a look, right? Like she needs to assuage him immediately. And the movie just immediately gets into this dialogue of everyone has to die. There are many ways of dying. We have the ability to choose the way we die in certain ways.
Yeah, and it's not something to necessarily be scared of or to treat as like
the fucking, virus or whatever has not robbed us of that completely.
No.
Like as much as the world has ended and changed and all that.
Right. And there's this feeling of like, how do you want her to die? Like, are you going to keep outrunning the alphas? Are you going to let the cancer completely take her?
Right. Like her brain is obviously right. She's already losing her sense of reality or whatever.
Or now that we know, is there like
a humane, dignified
to do it with agency and to not let her suffer anymore. And also like not let him suffer anymore.
Yeah.
And so she gives her son a big hug as he's hysterical.
She's holding him in order for Ralph Fiennes to trank him so he can't fight it. He doesn't totally black out, but he is
lose it.
Yeah, lying down with the baby,
and we just see her.
It's like life, new life, death.
What is her final line to him? I wish I had it, but it might even be something simple as "I love you so much."
And then she like walks away from the fire, and then the next thing we see is.
He hits her.
Fiennes returning.
He hits her with the trank.
Yeah.
And then he does what he needs to do. And he comes back with the skull cleaned. and hands it to the boy and says, you need to put it in a really important spot or something akin to that.
Choose where to put her on the
right.
Puts her
Which
up
once
top.
again, it's like these
He
are the
climbs
choices
to the
we
top.
have are how we die and how we process that death and how we pay tribute to it and all of it. And he climbs up and he places the skull there. And this is the moment where I'm just like, this movie rules. Who else would fucking think to make this their fucking legacy sequel?
Well, that's why it's even cooler. Right. Like it'd be cool anyway, but right. The fact that it's kind of like, we got to make this sequel after years of like, nah, no one's interested. And now
as
it's
we
like,
said-
okay, people are interested. What do you want to do?
And his career got stuck in a rut, and he's got this magic key, which is like, you know, the reason why it was so hard to see fucking 28 days and 28 weeks at the time we did the episode 2 years ago, where it wasn't streamable and it wasn't rentable, it had been taken off of platforms, is like 20 years later, the rights reverted back to
and then they
Garland, Boyle, and
sort of
McDonald.
packaged them
And they
had
didn't
an
resell
auction.
them immediately because they were trying to do the auction of rights for the previous 2, and we have scripts for 3 more, right? And he knows like this is the hot hand he's holding to be able to get something greenlit. And with that hand, he's like making a pretty fucking profound movie about the human condition and our like relationship to the actual idea of life and death.
Right. But you know who else has a hot hand? Thanos, when he has the Infinity Gauntlet.
Which he did himself.
And he did it all himself.
He did it all himself. It's really good shit, in my opinion. And it's also like, as we're saying, it's like perfect Boyle and Garland stuff. Neither one of them could have done this without the other.
I agree with you. Absolutely.
And I like the
that's why
stuff
they
they've done
worked
separately.
together. Exactly. Right. Well,
You know,
yes.
I think of like fucking Charlie Kaufman as well, where I'm like, I love all the movies he has directed. There is still a part of me that's like, can he like
sure.
let
could
Jones or Gondry direct a thing again?
Yeah, because
It's just fun to sometimes you get things that
it's
are
the magic of movies. This
the whole is greater than the
collaborations.
parts. Yeah,
Totally.
right.
So
And by the way, Boyle, of course, we should acknowledge, has been in interviews acknowledging like, oh yeah, Garland had like Sunshine sequel pitches that were insane. And
Do you know
rocked.
this, Ben?
Like
That
and
in
it's,
recent
you know,
press, he's like, what we wrote was a triptych of 3 movies that were connected and that they were each centered around a different planet in the solar system. They were not literally like Sunshine 2, but they had like a fucking Jupiter movie and whatever. And they were like, and then Sunshine bombed and they were like, well, no one wants these scripts. And he was like, but they were good.
Right, that's the thing. Boyle's like, yeah, they were good. I'll let Alex explain. And people are like, what? Hey, what? No, you explain now. What are you talking? He's like, oh, I don't remember, but they were cool.
Right.
Anyway, nobody liked that movie. And then people are like, no, we like it now. And he's like, oh, that's nice. Yeah,
He's
like-
also called out that like Rothman was the head of Fox at the time that
Yes.
Sunshine came out and mishandled the movie and hated it and fought him on
hated
it.
and thought it was too bleak.
Rothman is the guy who fucking bought the 28
Right,
package.
who's now at Sony.
Yes.
Yes, time heals all wounds, of course. But
And also is like,
yeah.
this guy supported us strongly in what we wanted to do, which was not the obvious thing to do with these movies.
what is the obvious thing? It's the only thing that I like. It's like, I don't know what I expected from
The
this
obvious
movie
thing is, I mean,
exactly.
obviously open on fucking Cillian Murphy's
Well, that's true. Sure. Like,
eyes
what's-
opening up and he's like
he's
the
on
fucking
his
badass
island.
survivor or
Right.
whatever, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Like even like within this story, the obvious thing is the kid makes it past the other side, and rather than Eric finding them at the 30-minute mark, Cillian Murphy is the one who finds them and guides them. Or
Right, and it's
Cillian
more-
Murphy is the fucking doctor. Or, you know,
It's
any
a
of those
Walking
things.
Dead thing of like, right, you find some village where we're like, here's our deal. You
Right.
know, like, you know, we live this way. And
But
there's
I
a
think
villain and there's
wisely,
a-
like they kind of fucking used Cillian Murphy that exact way in Quiet Place Part 2. And I do think this movie, as you called out, has something in common with the Quiet Place movies, which I remember when you saw it, David, and you were like, look, like, I didn't think I'd give him credit, but Krasinski locked into the right thing, which is like, this is a movie about how terrifying it feels to be a parent in a
Right.
world where you
Right.
don't feel like
That's
you can
the
protect your
juice.
children.
Right.
And this movie is doing the same thing from a different angle. And it's why it activated the shit you're saying, Marie, and why it like pokes these bruises. Is it's not like fatalistic about it, but it is like, it is scary that we don't ever feel like there's any way to actually keep our children safe. And in a world that is this intense, those fears are
Now, with all
intensified.
this
The
said,
stakes are intensified. Yeah.
the movie does have a cliffhanger. After all this wonderful stuff, And it does feel like the movie could close here. But I mean,
this emotional denouement, the music swelling, and he sends the baby back to the border
in a basket.
like
a
fucking
note,
Moses style.
Basically, hi, Dad.
To his
I'm
dad,
alive.
explaining himself.
This baby is not infected.
I'm gonna stay out here.
I have unfinished business.
Right. And then it does, and I'm like, great ending, right? This movie could go in any direction, and obviously it's opening up, like, what does this boy do next? But it does feel like this movie is a complete story. Then it does another 28 days later, and you're like, what is this?
He's saying the text flashes on screen.
And yes, it literally does the title card, and he's like fucking throwing arrows at
yeah, he's improved his
right. He's got a little better within reason, right? And he sort of finds himself in a dead end where he's able to take down one, but there are more coming, and he's not going to make it. And who presents himself very loudly at the top of this wall but Jack O'Connell,
the grown-up version of the little boy from the Teletubby scene in the beginning of the movie.
Who I did not put it together, but it did blow my mind when you called it out, David. He is dressed like Jimmy Savile.
And all of his minions, he's with a bunch of other people.
Called the
and
Jimmies.
They are all dressed like Jimmy Savile.
And they're all named Jimmy, and they're called the Jimmies.
I'm watching this movie in an audience full of Americans. I am American. I was born in this country. I'm not trying to say I'm, fucking John Bull over here. It's America's version.
But look, the audience reacts. They laughed, and they just go like, "Who the fuck is
They're
this
just
guy?"
Like weird, and
there's
just
no
like,
clocking of the semiotics.
Part of why I'm vibrating as you guys are like,
yes.
"Oh, you like that, right?"
I was freaking the fuck out.
He's dressed like Jimmy Savile, and then I took me a second to be like, right. Alex Garland's "you sick fuck" is going like, yeah, they wouldn't know that Jimmy Savile was.
Do you
bad.
know anything about Jimmy Savile, Ben? So I feel like I know more about Jimmy Savile than most Americans, and yet I did not get this at all.
I actually rewatched. There was like a Netflix.
You rewatched whatever Netflix garbage.
I didn't rewatch it, but I watched it.
I rewatched after this because I was like, we're gonna go into it, so I need to make sure.
Well, we don't have to go into.
Well, the thing that I forgot about is how important Jimmy Savile was to the north of Britain. The fact that he was a former coal miner from Leeds.
He's from Leeds, yeah. He's a Yorkshire boy.
Was very much identified with the north of England, which this movie also is.
That is true. I think he came up in even once he started being a DJ and stuff, he was still in the north. He was in Salford or Manchester or wherever. And but the whole thing, I was trying to explain him to people who were like, who are you talking about? And I was kind of like, I guess it was kind of like Mr. Rogers was a pedophile or whatever.
Also,
but it's not
combined
quite
with
right.
Pee Wee Herman and also so philanthropic and all these things.
Also, there's
he was this incredibly bizarre cartoonish
That was the whole thing. I was like, it's not quite right because Mr. Rogers' whole thing was that he was super normal. And Jimmy Savile was always weird. He was cartoonish. And he also did Top of the Pops. He's
a presenter and a light entertainer and all this sort of stuff. And a personality whose persona was so bizarre and his look was so bizarre and his energy was so bizarre.
But he also had this show called Jim Will Fix It for many years, which was kind of like a Make-A-Wish show where he would help
little
sick kids.
But they weren't always
a Mr. Beast kind of I'm making philanthropy.
But they weren't always sick kids. It would just be every little kid would write in and be like, my dream is one of the things was I want my duck to fly. I feel bad that my duck can't fly.
But so much of his cultural reputation is also his support of children's hospitals and things like this. Some of the stuff's entertaining, and he always downplays his status, and he's fucking knighted by the queen and shit.
He was the reason why the main spinal injury hospital in the UK why they the main source of their fundraising. He was knighted. He was really close with Margaret Thatcher and really close with Prince Charles.
I mean, he was right. Yeah,
he advised
through charity stuff. Yes.
He advised Prince Charles when Diana died on
within a very short period.
No, sorry, it wasn't Diana. It was Lockerbie. It was how do we respond to the British public after Lockerbie? And so they're in Jimmy Savile's papers, all of these notes to Prince Charles about how they should address the public.
Within very few years of his death, it came out that he was just a horrendous.
But it was like Cosby, where people knew.
Yeah,
there were always
there's the Louis Theroux documentary where he asks him about it. It was one of those things that people had just kind of chosen to sort of not think about.
And
but also, decades of child sexual assault, just to say the thing.
Be on talk shows in the 2000s where he would be like, someone would be like, oh, you were a wrestler, right? And he'd be like, yeah, I'm the most feared, man in all of the girls' schools in England or whatever. Like he would joke openly and people would
laugh. Lifelong bachelor, and they sort of like present it as sort of a joke of like, is this guy asexual? And then there'd be the whispers of like, it's kind of weird. And he would always diffuse it with this attitude of like, I hate children. I don't like talking to children.
Anyway, the whole thing with
this movie is like saying, what if Bill Cosby was never exposed and you had a gang of people who were all wearing Cosby sweaters and we're like, we're the Huxtables?
Yeah.
You know?
Right, where it's
but this guy was just so important to British.
So disturbing.
Yes.
He was retired by the time I moved to Britain. He was still known. He was still a figure. He was never that important. He was just sort of famous, like in a weird way. He was just a weird famous guy. And like a light entertainer, like Britain has lots of light entertainer celebrities where you're like, what do you do exactly? It's like, I don't know, host TV shows.
Looks like this, Ben, where everyone in retrospect is like, why weren't we like raising flags about this guy all the fucking time?
And to be clear, like when he was exposed, it was part of also just this big sort of investigation of a lot of figures who had abused people, and it
was a little similar to
culture of
Catholic
silence
Church scandal here of just like how systemic.
But what I think Garland
was.
is playing with, right, is that it's so disturbing. They're so disturbing, but also right, this sort of warped sensibility of Britain, like had like and like
this
they
odd kind of like weaponized avuncular kind of like friendliness, right? That is like
creepy,
feels
cheerful.
Exactly.
Yes. Yeah, it's so scary.
But it is quite a third rail for them to be touching in Britain. Everyone else will just kind of be like, whatever.
And let's be clear, the movie also ends at this point, right?
So
you're introduced to a whole new silo of culture, including the face of it being a known actor who is then third billed in the end credits of the movie. And you're like, okay, so that's the fucking second movie. But it is just like there is a kind of period at the end of a paragraph of him, the voiceover of the letter to the dad and the baby arriving at the gates and everything. And then this is absolutely just a next week on Lost.
I fucking love it. It reminded me of like the filmmaking is kind of like Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the way the action is filmed.
They're all kind of like doing little
like jumping
cartwheels and shit.
Like brightly colored jumpsuits.
It's so fun.
It was so silly and ridiculous. And
you have what's her name? Erin Kellyman.
Yes.
Here.
And there was another known actor.
Emma Laird. Who I think is in whatever. She's in The Brutalist in a small role. Or, she's coming
Isn't she the wife, Nivola's wife? Am I wrong?
I think
about
that's
that?
right. Yeah.
But that was why.
Remember The Brutalist?
No.
The Savile.
What was that? I'm hearing about this for the first time.
The Savile stuff is why I thought they kept the embargo.
Maybe. I mean, yeah.
I don't think it would have made a difference in this country, but I have no idea. I haven't read any UK critics. How are people?
Dude, I can't speak to how Sony does business, but in my opinion, they do business a little weird. We're deep enough in the podcast that I can slightly cast shade on.
Yeah,
they do this a lot. Like, I don't know why.
It's a really good movie. Everyone was like, this movie must be bad because they're not showing it to
instances of this, not just Sony in the last couple of years, where you see a movie like
get
fucking
too touchy.
Like you see, there are movies you've seen like 36 hours or less before they start screening publicly, commercially, where you're like, why the fuck weren't they showing this to us 3 weeks ago? Everyone likes this.
I also think this
movie's obviously a little more odd.
There's something about a lot of publicists who I love and respect a lot of publicists that I work with, but where like they seem to think the closer to sort of release that a critic sees the movie, the better. Like a kind of like, well, we need it to be fresh. Like you need to write your review with, needs to be this sort of exciting. And I'm just
like, I don't think that's true. Of your existence where you think
it's not mine, because I'm not like poor David Ehrlich who has to hit every embargo.
That's what I'm saying.
If you work for a trade,
when I say bane of your existence, I think not that you feel like you're struggling with it, but you feel like it's detrimental to film culture.
Yeah, I mean, sure. I mean, look, we all want the best for movies right now. But
look, Materialists, a movie I liked a tremendous amount. You did not really like. Marie maybe is in between the two of us, right? Marie and I were talking about last night. It is one of the great conversational movies, or rather, let me say, conversation movies in recent memory, where every conversation I've had about this film in the last week has been fascinating to me. And like, not even argumentative. I'm like, you know, there's shit like Last Jedi where I'm like, I'm so tired. I know what I think about this, and I'm not interested in litigating it with other people anymore. Whereas Materialist, I'm talking to people who I strongly disagree with, and I'm like, this is interesting. And I think the movie's kind of designed to provoke these conversations. And yet, I completely understand why they did not have that film play at a single fucking festival and went wide in the first weekend, because they were selling it as a thing that it is absolutely the antithesis of. It is one of the most antagonistic, like, bite the hand movies based on the expectations that they sold people. And I'm like, that's a movie that you don't want too many people writing about before the weekend.
They do that all the time.
Totally.
It's just they've never done it with a comedy before.
28,
They usually do it with horror movies.
Exactly.
Right.
It is the first time they have successfully figured out how to do their horror thing on a different genre. But 28 years later is not like that. It's not like, oh, fuck, audiences are going to be furious.
And
when
I've
they
had
see
a
this.
lot of, you know.
I am seeing stuff on Reddit. Sorry, but like people being like, oh, I think people are going to be disappointed because it's not as much of a zombie movie. The scares aren't there.
It has a lot of zombie action. I find that kind of an odd.
I was stressed out like for the first 2/3 of the movie.
Can I go back to my popcorn line conversation with the great Hillary Busis and telling her I don't think the previous movies are going to tie in that much to this? And I said, you know what I'm really hoping for? Like, in this moment of realizing I don't actually really know much about this movie, but I want it to be good, obviously. I'm like, I just want fucking the Romero approach. You know, like every 10 years, George Romero made a different zombie movie. And the connective tissue was, this is a zombie movie made by George Romero, right? They are basically like anthology films. They're tracking this culture and this world he's built, but we're not following characters. They're not building off the plot of each other. And he is just going like, what's another thing I want to say about the idea of this happening to a society? And I do think that's what this movie's doing, first and foremost, right? It's like Boyle and Garland being like, you know what? We got different shit we can say about zombies than the very specific shit we said in 2002. That's what I want. I don't know if people want this to be the kind of like, I don't know. It's an odd question of like, what does 28 Days Later as like a brand represent in people's minds?
Yeah, what are they? Right. What are they? What
It's a very
service are they being denied? I mean, you're right that it's
title.
Killian.
Yeah,
I guess.
But I think you kind of hit the nail on the head with like
Thank you. I have to do that.
my reaction to rewatching 28 Days Later for the Boyle series, where I remember it being good and scary from when I first saw the movie. And then as I saw it, I watched it again. I'm like, this is profound. This is political. This is so interesting.
Our episode
This
with David
is
Reese, very good.
a great
discussing
episode.
all of that, I feel
but it's also like a punishing movie, like a movie that keeps you in a miserable space.
But as I'm
Too
watching it, I'm like,
cheerful.
this movie's really smart, and it does not feel like it is now at the top of my Boyle rankings. But it was like, it doesn't really feel like as much of a classic horror movie to me.
No, but I also think that's the Romero approach. And you watch those films, and they're less horror films than even like the other straight horror movies that Romero made in his career. And it's like, it's him being like, I have no interest in making Night of the Living Dead 2. I will make a different zombie movie.
Well, that's why I'm just like, if you talk about like, what is the what are the fandom
I don't know.
expectations? Like, I don't know.
Because as much as obviously Cillian is like, you know, in his like coronation moment, it's not like Cillian Murphy in 28 Days Later is like Snake Plissken, right? It's not like we're dealing with like one of the great icons of horror where people are just like, I want to see him fucking ripping heads.
You had a Snake Plissken, that alpha.
That's like a 5D joke. That's a joke riffing
It's
on
a glowing. Wait, are we going to trap the entity in it?
That's a joke riffing on our 20-minute side tangent of, do you think Snake Plissken is packing?
Does the tattoo go on the dick too? Is the other
Wait,
question.
okay, so we can't really do the box office.
No,
thing, right?
I was about to say we're
It
going to
looks
be
like
done.
It's going to open to around 30. It's doing very well in pre-sales. I'm hoping it overperforms, but 30 would be a total triumph for this movie.
Basically, it seems like this week's box office is going to be kind of like 3 movies making around 30, like How to Train Your Dragon, Second Weekend, this, and Elio, which is not Italian.
Do you guys know about Ooh? Disney Emoji Blitz just started its Elio event. I've been introduced to a new character named Ooh.
Like O-O-O? Or just-
5 O's.
Ooh.
Yes. And it is a tiny little blue supercomputer that looks
Ooh.
like a bubble with eyes and a mouth, voiced by Shirley Henderson.
That sounds all right.
And I'm getting excited about Elio for the first time.
I've heard Elio's kind of charming.
I've heard it's kind of charming, but
Yeah.
Ooh might have the juice.
It just seems to
is
be.
Ooh about to have a mini-me summer? Is Ooh gonna do what Claude couldn't?
I mean, one hopes he can at least do what Claude couldn't. Claude did zilch.
There is one thing that's
Fucking
not
Claude.
related to
Claude
this
has a
film that
Manosphere
we have to
podcast now.
talk. We have to talk about it.
Wait, just to say the other movies,
Oh, okay,
I think
sorry.
Lilo and Stitch, I guess, is still hanging around. Ballerina has sunk like a stone. Mission Impossible held really well last weekend, but is that a Father's Day
little
thing?
Father's Day pop. I mean, it's funny for how much they tangled themselves in knots to try to course correct from what they saw as the underperformance of Dead Reckoning. This movie is going to end up within a 10% difference of what Dead Reckoning did at like double the budget.
I mean,
But
I don't care.
Look, the movie's
in that
good
way
and
of, like,
normal, and they're not owned, and everyone who
right.
worked
They're
on it
not
is happy.
owned, and it has just the right amount of exposition to explain everything for the emotions.
For the emotions that pay off.
I mean, I made a dismissive face.
We all
'cause
remember
I
that the
don't-
last 20 minutes of Mission Impossible Final Reckoning are akin to Big Fish.
I mean, I feel like he thinks that's true or whatever. Wait, I had a point to make about Mission Impossible. Like, I don't need there to be another one, so I don't need it to do well per se. I mean, I want movies to do.
The great news is
well.
McQuarrie's cracked it. He knows what he would do for 9.
The actual great news is that Tom Cruise will be getting an honorary Oscar.
Now, you text us this and you go, does this mean they're shooting his chances of a competitive in the foot? And I call out, they finally gave Paul Newman the honorary Oscar 12 months before he wins competitively for Color of Money, a film co-starring Tom Cruise. And then we clocked a couple other examples. Charlie Chaplin, they give him the very odd kind of multi-asterisked Limelight Award 1 year before they give him, or 1 year after they give him the honorary.
And then Spike Lee wins screenplay for
2
Black
years.
Klansman after he was given an honorary career award.
I think
So.
the thing that is, right, it's bizarre that it feels like Tom is about to transition back into making auteur, serious acting movies again. So here's a moment where he's maybe going to be gunning for the Oscar again. Why give him the award now? Also, the stunt category is being introduced.
Yeah, I also think I'm sorry, they gotta have this in the ceremony.
This is my fucking thing. I'm like, you guys are demented if you're giving Tom Cruise an honorary award and it's going to be fucking part of a clip package that they throw to and go like,
no.
6 months ago we had a fun dinner.
Yeah, no.
And
this
he's
needs
like
to be part of the
fucking
ceremony.
dancing with Debbie Allen on stage.
Yeah, no. Okay, so
Dolly Parton too. I'm like,
Yeah.
fucking Dolly Parton and Tom Cruise getting Oscars.
put
is
it on
TV
my TV.
gold.
Don't. I'm all for it. I support you guys. I'm interested in that production designer too. Give him 10 minutes.
Yeah,
Seems like a cool guy.
yeah. Everyone,
Worked with Spike Lee.
I
and
love
stuff.
I love honorary Oscars.
Me too, but I cannot deny that back in the day, even me who loves the Oscars, you would be kind of in the momentum of like, okay, it seems like this movie, and then it would be like, Screech, 20 minutes of Blake Edwards, where you're like, I love Blake Edwards, but
remember when
like,
he came out and he did a physical stunt in his wheelchair?
Yes, Marie, I remember that, but then he talked for a while.
Remember when Stanley Donen did Soft Shoe?
Yeah, I mean that stuff's great.
Robert Altman talking about his baboon heart? I
Uh,
can't remember if it was a baboon heart, but his heart transplant.
Griffin has a really important announcement.
For the listeners, everyone in this room knows.
Everyone in this room knows.
The
It's that
David
there's
Lynch
bones on
estate
everyone's
auction
tables.
was happening a couple weeks ago when JJ and AJ, our J's, were in town. We were all hanging out and looking at our phones and being like, we should have something, right? It just feels like we should get something from it. And at that moment, the item with the lowest listed price was,
He's gonna have to read it aloud because he doesn't know what the fuck it's called, even though he spent dollars on it.
excuse me, we spent dollars on it.
I-
have to actually bleep
Yeah.
how much you
I'm a
paid.
little mad if you spent the company's money on that, I will say. I'm like a little
Well, we
mad
will
about that.
say we did look it up, and face value
I don't care.
more
This is below
expensive.
MSRP.
I don't give a shit.
The
guys.
Ecolo Blue
It's
atmospheric
guys,
water
we can't just be spending that
generator. It is a water cooler that makes water from the air. It extracts the moisture in the air.
money. That's called a dehumidifier.
No, it's
What-
not.
And
It's
what's
called an
great about
Ecolo
this
Blue
room that we're gonna, I suppose, store it in?
window.
No, No.
Where do you think?
I don't know. I didn't tell you to buy that. I
It's
think this
not-
is where me and Ben are going to be like, you
No,
know
no, no.
what? It's time to have a conversation
first of
about
all,
stuff
why
that
this
goes
is
in
being
the
litigated
We
on
have
mic.
the measurements.
Yes.
It's not that big, but we're not taking it out of the packaging.
I don't care.
Because the packaging is addressed to David Lynch, care of David Lynch.
Yes, I'm aware of that. He must have sent it to himself.
But isn't that cool?
No, this whole thing is scammy to me. I find it
This
distasteful.
whole thing is scammy.
The Lynch auction thing. I found it all a little like, ooh.
Well,
Sorry.
we bought the cheapest lot.
I'm aware of what you did. Yes, I'm well aware.
And cheapest by a good distance. And to be clear, I put it on my own credit card.
Oh, okay. Well, then I don't care. You can do what you want.
Okay, but it is living in the studio.
Where? Point.
Over there. We can see the stuff that's like
we'll move the
where
Watto
books
standy.
are, you know, like it's
We're gonna have a dirty box with like a weird.
Looks pretty clean to me.
Yeah, people are gonna be like, oh my god, that's the David Lynch water.
Ben is like
Thing.
rubbing his
Ben,
temples.
please weigh in because I feel on an island right now. I feel like I'm on Lindisfarne.
I mean,
What about like right
we've
there?
been trying to make small improvements to the office
We've been
space.
doing a
Yeah,
lovely
we've got
job.
the porch now. It looks incredible.
got a
Ben's
Porsche.
made it look so nice in here.
And I think there's a lot
zero
of other
garbage in
improvements.
here, for example. Right.
Yes,
Right.
yes. There's a lot of other improvements. I think at some point we maybe want to get the arcade cabinet. Like
Maybe.
I just think
What
like
about like right there in that little alcove right there?
Yeah, there's so many spots where the log is. That could be the David Lynch alcove. We can put the log on top of the box for the water machine.
47 by 20 by 20.
I don't know. I mean, sure. 20 inches? More than a foot. Almost 2.
47 by 20 by 20.
Ben, I need you to join me or else I'll give up.
okay. I mean, I think, listen,
There's a reason we're talking about this on mic.
we're going to have to,
It's time
at
for
some
you,
point,
the listener, to weigh in.
we're at some point going to run out of room.
Yep. It's not that big a space.
And I have plans and I want to make some further improvements, especially because we're re-signing our lease.
You want to build a bone temple.
I mean, and we should talk about that. We're resigning our lease.
Yeah,
Our
and
landlord's
there's
great.
there's certain investments and things I want to do. So I would say, how about we compromise and we allow for it to live here for a select period of time.
That feels like quite the compromise on our side.
Here's
like, where's it going to go eventually?
I'm saying that it's not permanent, David.
Here's what I will say.
I'm trying to find
Here's
a
what I
nice
will-
sweet spot in the
Here's
middle.
what I will agree to.
Okay.
A provisional trial period.
If we all
I don't want it baked in that it is temporary. I will agree to give it some time, and if we all dislike it, I will figure out somewhere else for it to live. But I want it to have its trial period and to be given an honest shake.
That's all right.
I foresee.
Thank you.
Oh, they're shaking hands.
I think
They're
that's
shaking
fine.
hands. I mean, I
Yeah.
foresee this as a really important conversation piece. I think people are going to come in to record and be like, "Oh, is that the David Lynch water thing?" And you go, "Yes, look at it."
Wait. Can you continue the conversation or is it kind of wrapping up around there?
Oh, wow. He delivered it to himself. Cool.
And also,
Yes.
Okay.
And
And, then
also-
what's the next step?
by the way, if some fucking rage virus takes over
Yes, this is
and
so
our fucking
important.
water system collapses,
It's going to be
then
useful.
guess what? We got this fucking
We can make water
hyper
from the
useful
air.
machine for
Doesn't it need to be,
$100
like,
off
plugged into
retail
power?
price. Have you updated your Boyle rankings? I haven't. I'm just curious if you already
Yes,
did.
I have. And
Yeah.
I put it fifth. I put it, so my top 4, I feel like is pretty ironclad of like Jobs, Sunshine, Trainspotting, 28 Days Later. And I put it 5th. I put it above Shallow Grave, which I had 6th, and like the sort of next package of like Shallow Grave, T2, Slumdog, Millions, 127 Hours, the kind of like good, but not great sort of region for me.
I probably put it at the bottom of that tier, but I like this movie a tremendous amount. It maybe has more to say about me liking.
Wait, you would put this below like 127 hours?
I
and
love
Millions?
127 hours.
Fair
I
enough.
put this.
God.
I put
Oh no,
this.
I like this way. I love this.
This is
movie.
like maybe number 3 for me.
I put
This is
this
high for
below
me.
127. I definitely put it above Millions.
Sure. Slumdog,
I put it above Slumdog.
Shallow Grave,
I put it above Shallow Grave.
Train Spotting 2.
I put it below Trainspotting 2, which I also love. That movie hits really hard.
My
it's a good
ranking.
movie.
I have 28 Days Later.
That's your number one.
That's my number 1.
Oh.
The Isles of Wonder opening ceremonies I included in my rank at number 2. And then
I mean, great call. I mean, we love it, obviously.
This movie, number 3, 28 years, number 3. I just really like this world.
Yeah.
Then
That's a great world.
Steve Jobs, Trainspotting, Sunshine, T2, Slumdog, Millions, Yesterday, Shallow Grave, Life Less Ordinary.
You have Yesterday over Shallow Grave?
I liked Yesterday. I really
is
liked
going
Yesterday.
on?
I just think it's really nice that there's a movie about how the Beatles are really special.
Can I-
You know, no
Can I
one's
say
ever
it?
acknowledged that the Beatles are special. What?
Can I say it? I think our fucking episode helped the reputation of that movie.
I
mean,
love that
It's
episode.
I'm not putting self-importance
Its
on
reputation
us.
was so poor that even a lowly podcast episode could be like a shot of
But
adrenaline.
also, like, fucking Zach Cherry's the magic man. It's so hard to disagree with him. As you put it, no one beats the Zackster.
People
And I
clowned on that movie for like.
Although I don't
I
think
do.
he's helped Rollerball. I will
No,
say.
No, Rollerball is
But he was
not
trash.
detecting anything.
Let's
in
be
the
clear.
air.
He wasn't attempting to help Rollerball.
No, he was sort of like, I had fun.
He
but
was
wasn't
litigating
really.
his history with it, whereas I think he was making the case, and I think it made people watch Yesterday who hadn't seen it before. And I just increasingly will have people come up to me and say, you know what's quietly one of the best episodes you guys ever did? Yesterday. And by the way, psst, I like that movie. I've had that conversation a lot.
Right. And it was-
Strangers and friends, both.
President Trump said that to you
He did.
when you had your summit with him.
And I said, I'm hearing this for the first time. Wow.
Okay, here at the end of the episode, I just want to do a quick shout out. Past and future guest Ben David recently
Ben David Grabinski.
attended a wedding.
Yes.
Oh,
And I-
yeah.
Do you know about this? Did I send this to the group?
I'm not sure. But I just wanted to shout out Taylor and Kyle. Congratulations. They actually met through their shared love of the podcast.
Taylor was the editor on
Oh.
Different Man, one of my favorite movies of last year. He's a
Really?
wonderful editor. And
But horribly edited. Just kidding.
met him. I knew he was a listener. I was a fan of
I
his
was
work.
like, I love that. Like, this is an old episode where I'm like, love that movie, except for whatever fucker
Sloppy
edited
cuts.
it.
Real weird reliance on star wipes. But he had not told me that they fucking bonded over the podcast, and that's what got them together.
Aw.
So yes, congrats to them.
Speaking of a different
And also
band,
to call out past and future guest friend of the show. As of right now on the calendar, January 2026, 28 years later, part 2, The Bone Temple, directed by Nia DaCosta.
And we're going to do it, right?
We're doing it.
All right, cool.
Yeah, but it's funny
we
that
will.
like,
I mean, I suppose we kind of have to. I mean,
We
it's
have
not a
to.
Boyle film.
no, but I think we have to. I
I
don't
think
know.
we got it.
If we
Yeah.
do it on Main Feed or Patreon, we have to cover it in some way. It is funny that we had fucking Nia on Trance,
Well,
Yeah.
right.
That's true.
Yeah.
talking Danny Boyle, and then like
Did-
6 months
Yeah.
later,
Did she know
Boyle
at
was
the time?
handpicked? No.
Did he listen to that episode?
Who knows? I have questions, but I don't have answers.
Okay, well, Danny Boyle, let us know if you know who we are. We love you, especially David. David really loves you.
Can I say a really annoying thing in my life? I keep getting emails inviting me to screenings of
Humble
movies.
brag.
I am
Humble
very
brag.
eager to see. This is not a thing that has happened often, and it's been
And
ramping up
it's
the
in
last couple of
LA.
months. They keep sending me fucking LA
Well,
screenings.
they just think you're a big Hollywood boy.
Who thinks that and why? I try so hard to message to everybody. I'm downtown Griffin. I'm eating a dirty water dog. I'm walking a pigeon. I'm saluting the Statue of Liberty.
Hey, Griffin, do you like your bagels toasted?
Well, I feel like I can't answer this.
Because you have the wrong opinion?
Oh.
I have the opinion that's not seen as the real New Yorker's opinion.
Right, which is you like toasted bagels.
I like toast.
Yeah, I don't fuck with
Do you
it.
But I
tell-
think it's about the water.
Do you tell him light?
It depends on the place. It depends on the place and it depends on how fresh the bagels are. I walk in, I do a sniff test. I hold my hands up. I see what kind of heat is radiating off of the bagel baskets. And then I lick my finger. I hold it up to the wind and I go 425, 90 seconds.
Didn't you grow up by Murray's?
Yeah, Murray's is a great example of a place where they have a no toasting rule. And with them, it's not
Exactly.
necessary.
Well, that
'Cause they do
Murray's
their
to
job
me,
well.
That was like, okay, the Greenwich Village, the bagel spot. So I go to NYU. There's like, oh, New York bagels, and that's where I'm like, oh, I could never ask for my bagel to be toasted. 'cause they will
Absolutely.
know
But
that
when
I'm
I
an
walk
NYU
into Murray's,
student.
I'm not like, ugh, God, I hate they won't let me toast it. I'm like, yeah, no toasting necessary. But some,
If it's a bad bagel,
competitors.
yeah. If I ever eat like a bagel outside of New York City, sure, I'll get it toasted because I don't know where that's fucking
some of
coming
the
from.
bagels in New York. Depends on the place. Look, this has been our episode in 28 years later, a movie about bagels and toasting preference. In a way.
And It's so important. Wow, we went long. Okay, which is
There's
great.
so much to talk about.
Oh, I'm not mad. I'm
It's a
just
new release.
like
It's a big movie.
big episode. Yeah,
Yeah, it's exciting.
yeah. I hope it does well.
I do
want
too.
more.
But as we said, they're saying that the all-in cost on this one was 60
something. Yeah,
and I think they saved money by shooting 1 and 2 back to back. It was like a straight through production.
The new one has a different cast, I imagine.
Well,
but
the
some
bones probably
returning.
weren't that
Right.
expensive.
Well,
in
they've been
terms of like set
cagey.
deck, right?
I think because they were hiding the kid in general.
Right.
But it seems like Rafe is not in the next one.
No, I think it's like the kid's in it for sure. I think Aaron Taylor
Johnson
Johnson's in it in
is.
some capacity.
Obviously, Jack O'Connell has a much bigger part, which is why his billing is so high in this one.
Right.
Yeah.
And he's a name of sorts.
Yeah. Well, he's having a great comeback.
Before we sign off, I just want to wish our dear Ben a very happy birthday.
It's about to be birthday, Benny.
Yep, next week.
Yeah. And of course, for the record, he is turning 25.
That's right.
Forever 25.
He's turning 28 in honor of this movie.
That is what's nice about
Yeah,
Ben.
and I feel really good about it, and
Uh-huh.
I'm just excited for the future.
I don't want to call my shot, but I got a great present coming for you. My love language is gifts, and I think I will say you'll know it when you see it, and we'll post it on social media because I think it does need to be shared. But it was in conjunction with a friend of the show who was like, you know what's a good idea? And I was like, yes, let's
Oh, wow.
make this happen together.
Interesting.
I can't wait to find out what this is.
And then, of course, I'm gonna have a barbecue
yeah.
on the roof coming up, and I wonder if
I'm gonna try to just
someone
turn
might
my
make an
brain off.
appearance.
This isn't a work day for me.
Right, exactly.
Oh,
You
wait.
want, you
I don't
want
go
a big
into-
wall between work
I don't
and
walk
play,
into someone
exactly.
else's office and try to do their paperwork.
Right. You don't
know?
knock the dick out of my mouth. Tell me how.
My favorite joke.
It's so funny.
I don't go to where you're sleeping and knock the dick out of your mouth.
Do you have something special prepared
For Ben or for the barbecue?
for Ben's barbecue?
I do think
I don't want to make
The
that day
best-
about me.
the best way to complete this bit would be for you to become an expert smoker of meats.
Well, I have
We
a great
need to
news.
Get you on.
Great news update for you.
I'm just saying, like,
that bit was completed a decade ago.
I know, but imagine, like, I don't know how, some podcast event where you successfully, like,
Should we-
smoke 10
do
pounds
you
of
think they
brisket.
sell like
What is this weird framing of like a future hypothetical?
Do they sell like a little smoker at the Target? I'm just gonna buy one for the
Yeah, but
party, and then we'll set
it's
it
gonna
up. and
really
then-
limit the range of flavors on those guys. That's the thing.
Yeah, I imagine some disposable. It's probably not going to be.
You're not getting the full
Right.
bouquet.
I'm just
of
thinking
the
about
taste
it
of the
from
wood.
a social media perspective. I feel like that might get us more likes than
But
Marin.
that's sort of like, is that me like fucking posting and bragging about the fact that I watched a movie for the podcast on my phone? Do you know what I'm saying? Like, that's not the culture we're trying to
you're
present
right,
here.
You're right.
You know
you're
what I've been fucking around with a lot lately is teak.
Oh, yeah? You getting that teak on there?
I haven't cracked it yet, but it's interesting. Thank you all for listening. Next week, we return to and finish out our Amy Heckerling miniseries, Pod Times at Richmond Cast, with the final 2 films to date in her filmography.
Just reading here that apparently teak, vapors have a strong narcotic
Hey,
effects on
excuse
the
me.
central nervous
I said I haven't cracked it yet. I told you I haven't cracked it yet. And I might not. By the way,
But I'm not saying I don't think it makes it fully illegal, but I think it's a yeah.
I got to figure out how to harness it. And by the way, if I don't, I'll walk away. It's not ready for public consumption yet, but it's been interesting. It's been a fruitful spring of experimentation
Fruitwood, yeah.
for me, which is fun because I usually tend to lean on the fruit woods. Next week, I Could Never Be Your Woman, one of the most normal movies we have ever covered in
How
the history
do I
of this
watch
podcast.
this one? Is this one that
You just got to close your eyes and think
Yeah.
hard.
No, I mean, like, is this
I imported a
available to-
Dutch Blu-ray. It is
You can rent
actually-
it on
Marie,
iTunes
Okay.
or whatever.
It is on like Tubi, Pluto, all
Great,
of
great,
the-
great,
I think
great.
I might have watched it on like Peacock.
might
or
be on the
something.
Roku channel. It's
Awesome.
actually weirdly prevalent.
Are you willing to give Marie your copy, or is it something?
I don't have an all region player. I know, which is like really embarrassing.
Yeah, and that's a shame because the transfer on this one is really bad.
They worked really hard on that. They pressed a button and went to lunch.
Right. To mirror the Vaseline rubbed on the lens in the filming of the movie, they rub Vaseline all over the bottom of the disc.
Greasy.
Next week, I Can Never Be Your Woman with the great Karen Shee returning to the show.
Wonderful.
She's so funny.
She is
She's
so
the
funny
funniest.
and
It's a funny episode about a movie that is funny.
I guess.
Thank you all for listening. And as always,
That's my rage noise.
I was going to say, this zombie has the biggest dick I've ever
Yeah.
seen in my life.
Blank Check with Griffin and David is hosted by Griffin Newman and David Sims. Our executive producer is me, Ben Hosley. Our creative producer is Marie Barty Salinas, and our associate producer is AJ McKeon. This show is mixed and edited by AJ McKeon and Alan Smithy. Research by JJ Birch. Our theme song is by Lane Montgomery and the Great American Novel, with additional music by Alex Mitchell. Artwork by Joe Bowen, Ollie Moss, and Pat Reynolds. Our production assistant is Minnick. Special thanks to David Cho, Jordan Fish, and Nate Patterson for their production help. Head over to blankcheckpod.com for links to all of the real nerdy shit. Join our Patreon, Blank Check Special Features, for exclusive franchise commentaries and bonus episodes. Follow us on social at blankcheckpod. Subscribe to our weekly newsletter, Checkbook, on Substack. This podcast is created and produced by Blank Check Productions.